Hello and welcome to the Court Vision pre-race show. I am David Amboys as we get you ready for the week ahead for us here on Court Vision. As we continue into our third week of cancellations of motorsports events, us here at Court Vision have a bevy of different racing disciplines to showcase to you, the viewer. Just like we did last week, this week's pre-race show will be the same thing all three nights. However, for Monday and Tuesday, you'll be getting a look as to what makes the Championship Online Racing team so unique. Multiple series in action, just not every week. If you're listening on Monday night, you'll be seeing the ARCA iRacing Raptor Challenge Series. That's ARRCA, 2 R's. And while the name might make you think you'll see a bunch of Ford Raptors or the defending NBA champion Toronto Raptors, you're in for a bigger treat. Sports car racing, multi-class sports car racing. The newly released Porsche Cayenne GT4 and the Audi RS3 TCR car race against themselves and one another. If you've never seen multi-class sports car racing, you'll love the ARCA iRacing Raptor Challenge. They're in action from the Sebring International Raceway for a 90-minute endurance test. Tuesday, we'll see the CORT MH Design Series once again, but instead of their dirt sprint cars, the drivers of this series will be bringing their tour modifieds to the Oxford Plains Speedway in Maine. The 3/8 mile in the most northeastern state in the country sees drivers having to battle for the bottom while not getting too high up in the track. The results, if they do, they end up over the banking and off into the grass, losing valuable time. That action will be coming to you on Tuesday night with David Amboys, Zane the Bearded One, and IMSA driver Ryan Lewis. Wednesday night sees the return of the CORT National Series in their 5th race of the season. We're at the Martinsville Speedway this week for the running of the Grandfather Clock 400. The CORT National Series is CORT's premier division, and that was on display last week at Las Vegas in the inaugural Hangover 400. 42 drivers attempted the first ever Night to Day event from Sin City, and when all was said and done, former 3-time CORT National Series champion Johnny Eckert came away with the victory. With the series heading to the paperclip, who knows what kind of action-packed racing we have in front of us. And quickly, in order to better serve you, the motorsports fan, I've assembled some news from various sources as to when it comes to the world of real motorsports and, well, how they're using sim racing over the next little bit to help entertain you right now. NASCAR drivers and personnel from the industry have assembled a league that will be running every other Tuesday night. The series, entitled The Replacement Series, will be put on by Kevin Hamlin and TJ Majors, and will feature NASCAR drivers such as Dale Earnhardt Jr., William Byron, Bubba Wallace, Justin Allgaier, Chase Briscoe, Chad Knaus, and a whole host of others. Our own Jordan Erickson, the defending CORT Trading Paints Cup Series champion, he's a graphic designer for Team Penske, and he'll be participating in this series, which starts, well, this upcoming Tuesday, the 24th of March, and that will be running every other Tuesday through May. IndyCar and iRacing have announced the formation of the IndyCar iRacing Challenge, a series that will see the drivers from the NTT IndyCar Series competing on Saturday afternoons, starting this upcoming Saturday, March 28th. The series, scheduled to run through May 2nd, will start with a race at a track voted by fans over at IndyCar.com/iRacing. So be sure to get your votes in. That will be occurring this Saturday, March 28th at 3 p.m. Eastern. The world of IMSA had a pair of races from Sebring this past weekend, with the sanctioning body operating a 90-minute GTLM exclusive race that saw BMW driver Bruno Spangler take the victory over his fellow works drivers Nicky Katzberg and Jesse Krohn to sweep the podium for the German marque. While that was also being run, the Dinner with Racers combo of Ryan Eversley and Sean Heckman had a multi-class 12 hours of Sebring to fill the void with all sorts of crazy stuff. NASCAR Ford Mustangs, Pro 2 off-road trucks, sprint cars, Mazda MX-5s, sharing the road with LMP2 cars. It was pandemonium. I was a part of this race, and let me tell you something, it was the only race I got to run last week, and it was a blast to blast around a Pro 2 truck around some LMP2 cars. Formula One announced the launch of a new F1 Esports Virtual Grand Prix series, featuring a number of current F1 drivers. The series has been created to enable fans to continue watching F1 races on the internet, despite the ongoing COVID-19 situation that has affected this season's opening racing calendar. The first race happened this past Sunday with a virtual Bahrain Grand Prix, which was the race that was scheduled to take place this past Sunday, and it will continue through F1 shutdown in May. The series uses F1 2019, the last release of their official game by Codemasters last June, and the races are about half of the actual race distances in real life. That leads us to our current interview with Kyle Benjamin. Kyle is a veteran of the motorsports video scene. He's worked for numerous clients, most recently with Honda and HPD. If you've been to an IMSA or IndyCar paddock in the last couple years, chances are you've seen Kyle running around with a camera on him. I asked him about what he does for a living, what kind of stories he's got, and how he's getting through this right now. So, take a listen. Hello and welcome back to Court Vision and our pre-race show ahead of this week's action for the championship online racing teams. And I've caught up with Kyle Benjamin. Kyle, thank you for coming on to the pre-race show here tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for organizing all of this to provide a little bit of motorsports related sanity for everyone who's kind of stuck at home at the moment.
Yeah, and I appreciate the well wishes. Kyle, why don't you tell the people at home what you do? What do you do for a living?
Well, at the moment, nothing, because motorsports and racing and video production is pretty much on hold. So I spend my days being a dad and getting to spend time with my young boys and my wife and our two dogs. And that's kind of my gig at the moment. But prior to, the world shutting down, I was for lack of a better term, a content creator. Was able to spend the last 4 years working alongside Honda Performance Development and Acura Motorsports racing teams and delivering some pretty cool trackside media for their social channels.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've seen a lot of your work through HPD and the Acura IMSA program, which is awesome to see. Let me ask you something, though. With all of this, it must be nice to be able to stay at home and spend time with the family right now. That must be a blessing in disguise.
It is pretty cool. I mean, it's, this time of year, especially today, I'd have been, it's 8:20 on Saturday night. We should be at Sebring. I should be running around in the dark trying to identify, 4 separate Acura sports cars. And instead, I'm sitting at home. So that's a little weird, but it's nice to be home rather than, spending the next 36 some odd weekends in and out of airports and airplanes and hotels. So it is nice. It is, like you said, it's a blessing to be able to be home with my family and get to spend some time with them that I usually wouldn't. The time I only get to spend with them when we're not racing or, during the off season. So it's, I guess, a nice break. It's not a break I want. It's not a break I wish for anyone. Certainly, I would much rather be, at the track being able to get to do what I like to do and have the privilege of doing and being around all my racing friends and the people I've developed relationships with. But we're trying to make the most of it.
Yeah, and you're seeing everything, and we were joking right before we hit record on this interview here, but it's amazing to see in the last 10 or so days just how everybody has kind of been like, okay, racing's on hold right now. What's the next best thing? Let's go to sim racing. It's been crazy to see just how many people have been interested in coming out and supporting sim racing over the time that we've been through. And look, I want to stress that this is not us trying to make an opportunity for ourselves or anything. We're, like I have simply said, we're just trying to provide a distraction. We're just trying to fill the void of no auto racing in the real world right now. Trust me, I would love to be watching the 12 Hours of Sebring right now. I would have loved to watch the season opener at St. Pete last weekend for the IndyCar series. Unfortunately, we can't. And so that's what we have to do right now, is do the sim racing, which, hey, I don't mind doing it. I've done it for 8 years. I kind of know what I'm doing, so it's fine by me. But you've worked with Honda, you've worked with Acura, and they're the same company. But what's one of the coolest things that you've gotten to do with Honda and Acura?
Oh, there have been a lot. And I've been lucky enough to grow up around motorsports. And a lot of people there's a whole list of second generation folks in the industry now who got into it because that's how their parents made a living. And I'm one of those fortunate few who made some poor decisions along the way and followed in my dad's footsteps. The coolest thing probably being at the Indy 500. I was there in 2017 when Takuma Sato won, and that just the atmosphere there is incredible. I've been to a few. I've been to 5, I think, over the years, and it is unlike anything else. I mean, you don't really get a sense of speed on TV, and you really don't get a sense of speed next to the track either. Because when you're an accredited member of the photo and video brigade, you get to go to some really cool places at these tracks. And I've got a lot of favorites, kind of all over the country at the various circuits, IMSA and SRO and IndyCar all race at. Being in turn 1 as the field comes to you and the green flag falls, the last couple of years, all I've done, I've set my shot, and you've got plenty of time to do it, because in order to get out to turn 1, you've got to leave the infield at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And it's going to take you 45 minutes to go from the media center out to where you can shoot in turn 1. And a lot of us kind of get out there and we just kind of hang out and chit chat and, bide our time, watch the pre-race festivities and all that. And so you have time to get set and get ready. And I've been able to, pick a spot, set my shot up and hit record, as the pace car comes around turn 4, because it's so far out in front of the field that you've got 10 to 15 seconds before the cars even, come into view. And I hit record and I just step back and take it all in, because there's nothing else like it in the world. I've never been to Daytona for the Daytona 500. I've been, for the Rolex 24 a handful of times, and that's pretty cool. But just being down there in turn 1 as they go, sailing down there, it's pretty neat to see, but you don't quite get the sense of speed. The only place you get the sense of speed there at Indy is in the short chute, because the cars get right up next to the wall. And I remember last year I was trying to find different places to shoot during the race. And it's hard because your lines of sight at IMS aren't great. There's maybe a half dozen places where you can take a video camera and set up and get a good, pan shot with the cars, because we're trying to get, 10 to 12 seconds of a car in frame to help tell our story. And so I found myself down in turn 3, and you can go under the bleachers and you can get right up next to the track. And I kind of walked up and I'm walking, and I just happened to time it to where there were no cars coming as I was walking up next to the wall. And then all of a sudden they start zipping by at 220 plus miles an hour out of turn 3. And I started laughing to myself just from the sheer speed sensation and like the stupidity of what I was doing. Because I was a catch fence away from these cars, going 10/10 through there. And I just kind of stepped back a little bit and I set my camera down and my tripod down and I just watched. I just kind of took it all in as a fan. Because I had that unique privilege of being able to get to places where normal people can't. And I just thought, I'm going to just enjoy this for a minute or two and just kind of watch these guys work and take in that sensation of speed. And then I set my camera up and I got a couple shots. And then I forget who it was. Somebody came through turn 3 a little bit sideways. And I just saw the wheel twitch and they collected it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go somewhere else. This doesn't seem that smart anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing that hits me the most whenever you see these IndyCar, because I finally was able to go to my first IndyCar event. I kept saying I was going to go to the Honda Indy Toronto. I'm going to go to the Honda Indy Toronto. I'm going to go. And I finally went last July. And I've been to NASCAR races. I've been to many NASCAR races. I've been in the pits for NASCAR races. I've been to the Rolex 24. I've been to the 6 Hour at the Glen. I've been to numerous IMSA races now. And there's nothing quite like the sound of a Honda or a Chevrolet IndyCar engine, and they're like fighter jets. They're grounded fighter jets, and that was in road course configuration, going about 160 roughly, going down Lakeshore in Toronto, and it's at a street course, so you can't really see much. I was in general admission, but like, it's amazing just how spaceship the Indy cars are, and I implore anybody who's listening, like we have a heavy NASCAR contingent in the championship online racing teams, but I implore people, when we get back to racing, go to an IndyCar race, and if you can, go to the Indianapolis 500. They call it the greatest spectacle in racing for a reason.
For sure. And it's because it is a spectacle. There's so much going on. And by the way, don't accidentally end up in the snake pit. Like, that's one piece of advice I've got. I got lost driving around the first time I was there trying to find a place to shoot. And I ended up in turn 3 and didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. It was so overwhelming, just the noise, because you can hear the music over the sound of the engine. And 33 Indy cars doing 10,000 RPM is loud, and you can hear music on top of that. So that should give you the kind of sense of the snake pit. So avoid turn 3 at all cost. But just like you said, the spectacle, everything that's there. And I saw it on Twitter this week as everybody was in, the motorsports world was kind of coping with, we don't have racing. What do we do? I forget who it was, but somebody said, you can't describe the Indy 500 to someone who wasn't there, but for people who've gone, no description is necessary.
That's really good. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Like, I have not been to the Indy 500. I've only been to an IndyCar race in Toronto, which, although, IndyCar has been coming to Toronto for 4 decades now, it's still like, it's not the 500. I know, because we have a mutual friend in the circle of CORT here, basically the people that we know, who works as a transport driver for one of the teams. And he tells us, you got to get to the 500. You got to get to the 500. So maybe with a rescheduled Indy 500, hopefully we can run it in May. But, who knows? Maybe I need to get down to Indianapolis for that.
For sure. But I would also say an IndyCar street race is a whole different experience all on its own, because what I've noticed over the years of being up close and personal with these cars, and kind of having that view, not as a fan, but as a member of the media who knows some of these drivers and understands like how they drive and the mechanics of how the cars work. And then also that unique perspective of looking through a viewfinder and a lens and getting so much closer to the action through that medium. What Alex Rossi did at Road America last year was incredible. I mean, he waxed everybody, but I think his margin of victory was almost 34 seconds, which is bonkers.
Yeah, that's unheard of for any IndyCar series when you got the push to pass and everything on those road courses.
But Road America is like pool table smooth compared to a street circuit. I mean, one of the outstanding memories I have of when my dad was a big time broadcaster was the San Jose Grand Prix. And the cars were getting airborne because they were driving over train tracks. And then you had a similar situation in Baltimore when IndyCar went there. And you get that at every street course. You get the cars undulating and bouncing, which is one of the cool things about IndyCar on street courses, because you can watch the drivers actually work and watch them move their hands and their heads bounce around. And it's one thing I really enjoy about Sebring too, is being able to watch these GT cars and the prototypes sail through turn 1, because the change in elevation there is pretty dramatic, and they just hop and skip and keep going. And these guys just hold it to the mat and managed to keep it off the wall and out of the tires. It's incredible to watch really talented race car drivers practice their craft.
Yeah, and to attest to the bumpiness, like, even for those of you who might not know, iRacing actually has a laser scan version of Detroit Belle Isle, and we're actually running our Supercars season finale there in June, and that is a track that is very unforgiving, and you work out when you run Detroit. It is a workout, and let alone that those IndyCar guys run that place twice. They ran 2 races there, Saturday and Sunday. Just they're the closest thing, and this is not putting down NASCAR drivers or IMSA drivers or anything. I'm not trying to put them down, and we'll move off the IndyCar point here in a minute. I swear to you, folks. But IndyCar, they are the closest thing to bullfighters in motorsports, in my opinion. They are the most ballsy drivers in the world, and what they're able to do with the cars that they have is just incredible.
Oh, for sure, 100%. The turn 1-2 complex at Detroit, where you come down the front straightaway and you take that right-hander, and then it's left and over a bridge, basically, and over a big hump. Watching the IndyCar drivers do that at full speed, when we get the chance to watch them again at Detroit, those cars are through that corner sideways.
Yep.
The way those, and I'll be curious to see how the cars adjust with the extra 60 pounds of the aero screen on top. But I was looking through some video I shot the last couple of years, and to watch those guys come through there, going through the gears, they're still on the throttle. They've got the cars to where the back end pretty much just steps out. The back end guides the car through the corner. And then they kind of get set up to go over that big hump, and then it's down, the second front stretch there towards turn 3. Those guys are something to watch, and it's something special that I've been able to watch them up close for the last few years, and I hope to be able to get back to do that real soon.
And as we saw, you could even be driving a passenger car through those corners and have some issues.
Exactly. And that kind of reinforces the point. And that was being there. I was right around the corner from there. I was outside turn 1 when that happened, and none of us all standing there kind of knew what was going on. You've got this whole group of photographers, and we're all looking at each other like, what's happening? And someone comes running around the corner. You guys aren't going to believe what just happened.
For those of you who might be living under a rock or might be new to motorsports, please type into your Google machine or your YouTube Detroit pace car crash, and you'll see a car, not a Honda or an Acura product, may I add, wrecking pretty heavily over the bumps in Detroit, and is one of the main hilarious points in motorsports of the 2010s, in my opinion, was when we wrecked a pace car on the pace laps in Detroit. Getting back to this interview here, you mentioned your father, and I would be remiss to ask, or I'd be remiss to address that your father's a pretty famous name in North American motorsports. Your father is Rick Benjamin, the longtime host of TNN's Race Day back in the day,
yes,
and many other racing properties. How did growing up with Rick as your father lead you to want to get into the same profession?
Like I mentioned earlier, I made some bad choices along the way. I don't quite exactly know how it happened. It was just one of those deals that, and I'm sure other folks who have parents in a similar line of work, it's one of those things that's pretty natural. But growing up, my dad was a news anchor for a long time, and when racing was starting to gain in popularity, I don't remember exactly the genesis of it, but my dad started in radio. He was the voice of the Boston Bruins in college. My parents both went to Boston University. And my dad grew up racing. My grandfather was a mechanic. My dad's from Danbury, Connecticut, and the very famous Danbury Race Arena, where a lot of Northeast New England drivers got their start. Randy LaJoy, his family raced up there. My dad and Randy go way back. They've known each other forever. So a lot of drivers kind of got their start up in the Northeast. And as motorsports was gaining in popularity, my dad got the opportunity to take what he knew about motorsports and racing and the fact that he knew how to do sports on the radio and put those two things together. So he was one of the original guys on MRN, along with Mike Joy and Eli Gold and, a whole list of names and voices you recognize. And then from there, he got to do some stuff on TV as people were like, okay, we want to put racing on TV. Who knows racing and who knows television? And there was my dad, because he was, being a news anchor at the time and knew racing and got to make that jump and has got to do some really, cool things along the way. He did, Trans Am and ALMS, and he did the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And he did TNN, race day for a long time. And he was on Speed Vision and Speed Channel and Prime Network with Ralph Sheheen. One of my earliest memories of my dad on TV is he and Ralph at some short track somewhere on Prime Network. But my dad had to go as Ron Williams because the TV station he worked for at the time would not let him be on TV as Rick Benjamin.
Yeah, I was going to ask. He had to go by a fake name for a little bit. He had to go by a fake name.
Yep. And it was Ron Williams was the name he chose.
Yes, Ron Williams. I was asked to ask about that, and now I know the answer. So that's really fascinating. I saw that you posted some clips, or you had saw some clips of him calling USAC Silver Crown from Eldora in like 2002, 2003.
Yeah. So today's Saturday due to the kind of extenuating societal circumstances. I'm not entirely sure what day it is, which is okay, I guess. There's nothing going on, so why does that matter? So this was a couple days ago, and I just happened to be, mindlessly scrolling Twitter to make sure the world hadn't, started coming to an actual end. And Flow Sports is now re-airing a lot of dirt track racing that they somehow have access to. And the clip was my dad and his co-host, and I was like, holy cow, there's my dad. And it was the million, I forget the name of the race, but it was some sort of $1 million prize to win USAC race at Eldora back in 2003 on Speed Vision. So that was cool. And then somebody found a sports car race he did with Paul Gentilozzi in Minneapolis in 1998 last night. So it's neat that a lot of people are now looking back at the history of racing as kind of a way to pass the time. And I guess it's a little special that, my dad's presence on some of those broadcasts might be bringing a little joy and comfort to those of us who are homebound and without motorsports for the time being.
Yeah, and it must be really cool to have somebody like message you and be like, hey, I found your dad on, I don't know, 1994 Trans Am at Des Moines or something.
Yep.
So yeah. that must be really cool.
It is neat. It's nice when people say, because he's just my dad to me. It was never anything novel that he was on television. That's just what my dad did. And I had, I didn't really appreciate it till I was older, but when I was growing up, my friends were like, oh wow, your dad's on television. I'm like, yeah, your dad is a banker. Okay. That's just what he does. It's completely normal. I didn't think anything of it. But then as I got older and started doing it professionally, people would be like, oh, I remember when your dad, did this or did that. And oh, we really miss seeing your dad on TV. And oh, he was so great. And it's like, oh, wow. Like people really, like he was a big deal. And I don't think I appreciated it in the moment, but now kind of having had a similar career, and being able to do some of those things on TV, I can look back and go, yeah, it's neat that he kind of helped blaze that trail of racing on television.
Yeah. And like going back to what you said just a moment ago, it is pretty crazy. I don't think when he was, calling SCCA Trans Am from St. Petersburg or something in 1996, we would be sitting here 24 years later cooped up in our homes trying to not get the coronavirus and watching old racing. I've been so busy with Court Vision the last 10 days or so. But if I weren't doing this, I would be watching old Trans Am or watching old, TNN race days. That's what I do. I watch old 90s racing all the time.
Yeah.
That's just what you do. I mean, that's it's fun. And then you end up watching like weird stuff, not involving your father, but like ending up watching weird things like IMSA GTO from Brainerd in like 86. And then you're just down a rabbit hole. And then before you know it, it's like 2 a.m. So
it happens with YouTube and old racing. It totally makes sense. Yeah. But it's been neat to be a part of that and having the privilege to be able to do some cool stuff, because of the connections my dad has and who he is and the doors, that his career has kind of opened for me. It's been neat. It's been nice. And I've got, I don't know too many other 18 or 19-year-olds that were able to, work on a network level broadcast during their summer vacation. And fly all over the North American continent going to champ car races. So that was pretty cool, and that's what kind of got me into this, and that's when the bug really bit. I was like, holy cow, you can do a lot of cool stuff in TV, and you can make a living doing it, and I don't need to do anything else. So look out, journalism.
So along those lines, what's maybe the funnest project you've ever done? If you had to narrow it down to just one thing, would it be the Indy 500? Every year?
Well, I don't know. The Indy is so unique, and it's such an event, and there are so many other elements that go into being there as a member of the media, and it's so insular at that because you can't really see in the infield and even around the track where you can go to shoot. You just can't see enough, and the cars go by so fast, and you're working. I look up and I'm like, oh my gosh, the race, it's now lap, 153, and I've got 17 clips of video. Where'd the day go? Because you're trying to, see that car coming, identify whether or not it's one of your drivers, and you've got 4 seconds to get it. So you're working too much to appreciate it. The coolest races for me are the endurance races in IMSA, because you get time to appreciate it as just a race fan. And there are a lot of people who work in racing who I don't think are necessarily fans of the sport. They're there because it's their job and they enjoy being there, but I don't think they necessarily appreciate motorsports for what it is. So the Rolex 24 is pretty awesome because it's bonkers 24 hours of, and guys have told me like, no, it's not an endurance race. It's a sprint race. It's 24 hours of qualifying laps because the field is so tight. And just to leave the track and come back, you leave the track and the cars are running, and you come back and the cars are running, and you get to see sunset and daybreak and all that stuff. It's just a neat experience. Sebring's cool just because of where it is. The track's out there in the middle of nowhere. There's a million people there. And it's just got all this history. It's so unique, and it's a challenge, at least for someone who does what I do, which is, that cinematography and finding those cool shots of the cars. Like, Sebring's a challenge because there are too many places to go and shoot video and shoot pictures. And so you're trying to like map this plan of like, okay, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. Well, I've got time. Let me go to this place I've never been before and see what it looks like. So I would say the coolest memory for me was being at Petit Le Mans in 2016 when then Michael Shank Racing won overall in their P2 car, because they kicked everybody's butt all weekend long. And it was a true Pro-Am team at the time. Pro-Am, Olivier Pla is a fantastic race car driver. And so is Oz Negri. But, John Pugh was one of the last true gentleman drivers, a guy who just liked racing and liked racing at a high level, and they won. And there were some very upset people in the paddock that they won, and won so handedly that weekend.
Yeah, well, Hey, that's why we race, right?
That's racing. So that was really cool. That was cool to be a part of, for sure. And just, kind of have that access to the team and be able to hang out with them in the pits and interview the drivers and talk to them and be able to tell that story. Because I wasn't there as a videographer that weekend. I was there as the quote unquote talent for our Honda Trackside project. So being able to tell that story that's something I'll remember for a long time, just because it was very relaxed, or kind of as relaxed as you could be with a major sports car endurance race. But, Meyershank Racing back then was the little team that could. And they did. They had, a pit gun failed and some teeth got stripped off one of the rear tire.
Nuts.
The nuts. Thank you. And so they were afraid like it wasn't going to last. And they were pitted next to Ray Hall Letterman. And those guys gave him a spare pit gun. And that pit gun, I guess, had enough torque to overcome the busted teeth, and they survived. But like, it was, every pit stop was this real tense activity, and just to see the pride on everybody's face that they like survived and won. And again, like, I don't know if our listeners remember that race, but Olivier Pla was leading at night and coming down the hill towards the start finish line, and he spun.
Yeah. He did.
And didn't lose the lead. That's how far out in front these guys were. And, it was kind of they had Honda engines in the car at the time. It wasn't an Acura program. They had that factory support, but they weren't the big Honda dog in the IMSA paddock. There was another team in the paddock that had won 2 endurance races that year already. And that particular team is no longer in sports car racing, and they were quite upset and kind of refused to participate in any of the post-race activities, even though they were on the podium, because they thought they deserved to win, and got waxed by this team that's now gone on to win an IMSA championship and is one of the hallmark GTD programs in IMSA right now with those NSXs.
Oh yeah, with the 57 with Catherine Legg and the lady team and
Yep.
the Trent Hyman team. Which were the defending GTD champs. So,
yep.
Fantastic stuff there with the Petit Le Mans victory. Kind of flip side with you on this.
Sure.
What's the strangest shoot that you've ever had to be a part of? It doesn't even need to be motorsports related. Like, just what's the weirdest one? And as someone who went to school for broadcasting and got a degree and is currently not using it, but, we've all had our weird shoots that we've gone on. What's yours?
Ooh, okay. So let's think, because I was before I got into racing full time, I was a news anchor all over the U.S. So I've kind of seen a little bit of everything in that particular line of work. The most eye-opening thing I ever did, my first job as an anchor was in Montana towards the end of summer. And if you're familiar at all with Montana in the summertime, everything is on fire. And that's a big deal. And I was not aware that wildfires, like, I knew about wildfires, just having kind of been a consumer of news, but I didn't realize that they were like a thing that happened all the time. And so I learned a lot about fighting wildfires and how that was all done and the agencies that were involved. But the first story I ever did professionally was about a wildfire. And I was given a map back then, like hand-printed directions from MapQuest, and told to find this fire in the mountains. That was my direction. So that was kind of a weird, like, hey, congratulations, you're an actual journalist. Go find this blaze. In Montana, I passed someone on the wrong side of the road in a blizzard once.
Wow.
They passed me on the wrong side of the road as well.
Wow.
So that's how snowy and how reduced the visibility was, that we passed each other going the wrong way on coming down a mountain, going back into Missoula where we lived. I covered the demolition of a smokestack.
Woo.
So that was Yeah, that was just kind of like it was important because I guess it had been part of a factory in the area for a long time, and they finally knocked it down. But I can't really think of the weirdest.
I mean, smokestack's pretty up there. I mean,
Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was completely normal for that market, but like as a guy who grew up in the Charlotte suburbs, they're like, "Yeah, go cover the smokestack that's coming down." I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure. If it's important to you, it'll be important to me."
That sounds very Montana. Like that sounds like on brand, like very on brand. So
for sure.
I'm not shocked by that.
For sure.
Not shocked by that at all, for sure. Let me ask you this, just as a last little question to you. Have you ever done iRacing? Have you ever jumped on a plastic steering wheel and come race pixel cars ever?
I did, and I was terrible at it. In 2010, and it's another one of those like fringe benefits of being Rick Benjamin's kid. We got for Christmas like 3 months of iRacing gift cards from the fine folks at iRacing, because I guess they when back then my dad was on Trading Paint on Sirius NASCAR radio.
Yes.
And I think it was one of those like, oh, here, give these to your kids. So I was like, oh, cool, iRacing. This sounds awesome. And I jumped like right, feet first into it. I went and bought the G29 steering wheel and had the pedals, the whole bit set up. Only problem was, because I'm a video production person, I have a Mac.
Oh.
And iRacing, well, you can, everybody knows you can boot camp it. You can run Windows on your Mac laptop. It didn't, and back in 2010, like it couldn't quite handle it. So I never got up to speed. I was always slow. I couldn't get a handle on the steering inputs and all that. And trying to jump into that from, someone who was very adept at playing with a gamepad, like on the Xbox, I gave it a month and I was like, this is a complete waste of time. I can't do it. And I've toted that wheel all over the country with me. We've moved it 10 times and it's still in the bin I put it in when we left Charlotte the first time. So, but now is a perfect time, I think, to get back into iRacing.
Well, I tell you, it sucks because about mid 2015 ish, like 2014, 2015, 2016, iRacing did have a Mac client, which would have been perfect because it ran on Mac. I actually had to use it one time in a pinch when we had all sorts of computer issues here, and I had to dig out my old MacBook Pro from college and be like, please, Lord, work. It did, kinda, so it did the job, but yeah, I mean, absolutely, now's the time. I mean, hey, we were talking about it with I was talking to Patrick Lindsay, who is the community manager for Trading Paints, who is, the paint scheme exchange for iRacing and the official paint scheme exchange of the championship online racing teams. Nice cheap plug there. But we were talking, and he was mentioning that they had 12,000 users on iRacing this weekend, which is an unheard of number. Like, they've never had numbers that big on a weekend. That just goes to tell you how many people are seeing these races that NASCAR are doing, that IndyCars are going to start doing next week, and that IMSA did today. We're taping this on Saturday. And they're seeing these races and they're like, wait, you mean to tell me that I can race against, the driver? Whoa, knocked my microphone out of the way. I can race against the drivers that are racing an IMSA or an IndyCar, and I could race against Alex Rossi and all of that. Sign me the heck up. Yeah, absolutely. I want to drive an IR18. I want to go drive an HPD LMP2 prototype. Yeah, let's go. So it's the perfect time.
Wasn't it Josh Berry who got a ride with Junior Motorsports because he met Dale Jr. through online racing?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So there you go.
The defending Martinsville 300 winner. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's proof that it pays off. Look at William Byron. Just look at William Byron. Just all of William Byron. That should tell you everything you need to know about iRacing, and it's awesome to see that. Albeit the circumstances are terrible. I want to stress that they are terrible. But it's awesome to see that iRacing is getting the recognition that it is right now. And it's a long time coming, because I know a lot of those people have been grinding for over a decade now, and they're finally getting their moment in the spotlight. So,
oh, for sure. And it was, I can't take credit for the idea, but I remember tweeting last weekend, Friday or so, when everything was starting to be canceled, I tweeted something like, it would really be smart if all these series had some sort of iRacing championship in the interim. And lo and behold, I know I'm not the only one who had that idea, but
yeah, I was going to say my guest last week, Chris Leone, before we recorded, he was telling me I've been on the phone for like 4 hours last night with this client and this client and this client and this client, and we're all getting this all together, and it's been crazy. And I was talking about him about a project earlier today, and he was the exact same way. It's like, this has been insane just how much growth there is over the last 10 days. It's like someone took a match to some gasoline and boom, It's been crazy.
Well, and hopefully on the other end of this, actual racing gets some more fans just based on, this. I think it's going to be good growth for everybody. And it's one of those things where, like, you hope the community will just come together and, because now that you've got buy-in from all these drivers and, the armchair, the steering wheel warriors of the internet are, we can be like, hey, cool, we brought the community together in this time of crisis, and then we can all go forth and, make racing, not some kind of really random niche sort of thing, but a little more mainstream, or perhaps a little more mainstream than it was.
Yeah, maybe absence makes the heart grow fond with some of these Laps fans, and maybe they come out to the racetrack once again. And when racing is back, because it will come back and it will be strong, and those first few races for all major motorsports all across the world are going to be well attended. Mark my words, for sure. They will be well attended, and they'll be long overdue. And I can't wait to park my butt in a lawn chair at the toe of the boot at Watkins Glen for the 6 hour at the Glen whenever it happens. So that's my first race of the year, and I hope it remains my first race of the year in late June. So, Kyle, thank you so much for the time. I greatly appreciate it. You were one of the first few people to reach out to us about, doing something. So I greatly appreciate you donating your time and your 99 cents to TeamSpeak for the app to help us out. And thanks again.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been a weird week. It will continue to be a weird springtime for sure. But whatever we can all do, those of us who've been privileged enough to, be able to make a living in racing, trying to return a little sense of normalcy to, the fans and the people who allow us to do what we love and do it, continually. It's the least I can do is help out, since I'm not putting my skills to work at the track, maybe I can help out at the digital, the digital speedway. So.
Well, the time for talk is over. Let's go to the track. It's race time here on Court Vision.
Live tonight from the virtual Martinsville Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Court Vision as our coverage of the 2020 CORT National Series continues tonight from the paperclip at Martinsville Speedway. Happy that you're spending your Wednesday evening with us up in the broadcast booth alongside myself, Evan Pasoko. Happy to be accompanied by the one and only Zane the Bearded One, David Damboyce as well, the man behind the scenes to make it all of this possible here at Court Vision. Going to be on the microphone as well as he twists and tweaks the dials. But of course, we come off of a very unique race at the Las Vegas Motorway last week, Zane, but to kind of focus on the task at hand as drivers right now winding down in tonight's practice session is simply, it's Martinsville.
It is Martinsville. I'm having a hot dog right now, so you got to give me 2 seconds because these Martinsville hot dogs are delicious, even in the virtual format. I'm telling you, Evan.
And I wonder if that's going to be included in our stipend at the end of the night, if we could per diem and expense all those Martinsville hot dogs. Of course, this comes up as round number 5 on this 2020 A Championship. Of course, as we saw with the first broadcasted one of the year last week in Vegas in the Hangover 400, we actually started that race in the evening, raced into the morning, where we went on to see John Eckert take home the checkered flag. That was his first win of the season. So now we have had 3 different race winners in 4 weeks, with Mitchell Riggs having taken the first 2 checkered flags of the year, Daytona and Atlanta, and he actually leads the championship points headed into this evening. It is Riggs on the top of the pylon. He's 9 points ahead of John Long, and everybody else second down through 9th without wins. So pointsing their way in with consistency. The likes of Long in second, Husby third, Brett Black at fourth, and Anthony Hyatt tied with him as well in the number 5 position. But we've been to so many different tracks over the course of the season already, and I was gonna say, Zane, that Martinsville's the first short track of the year, but it really isn't. We went racing at Iowa, and by Cup Car and NASCAR National Touring standards, Iowa's a short track, but it does not have a short track vibe like Martinsville does. It's totally different, and we were kind of joking on the broadcast last week that some drivers were getting into some heated moments as there was contact made over the course of the race. Well, if there is any single event on the calendar this year where that retribution can kind of come to the forefront, it's right here tonight.
Oh, most definitely. You're going to see a lot of probably bump and runs, a little bit of patience go out the window. Really, you got to wonder how many drivers are going to sit in line and wait for their moment to get to the inside and move around these drivers, or they're just going to use, as we say, the chrome horn to move them up and out of that racing groove and make the pass.
Of course, there's been a ton of broadcasted action here on Court Vision this week, and we'll bring David Damboyce into the booth for this one. And David, I know you've been super busy behind the scenes just making all of this possible. And, of course, with the big hiatus in real life, not only racing, but in sports and entertainment in general, you've really stepped up to bring everybody at home something to catch 3 nights a week now for 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and what we've just basically been trying to do is just fill the void of the fact that there is no racing. We didn't seek out to do crazy things and become the next big broadcasting company in iRacing. That's not our goal at all. We're just trying to provide distraction from what's going on right now, and that's what we are trying to do here at Martinsville tonight. And we have 3 really good races next week, too, as we can quickly get to this. I know we just started the show, but next week, if you like what you're seeing, Monday, we're taking the V8 Supercars to Monza, of all places. Monza at 9 p.m. Eastern on Monday. I'll be on the call with Chris Burke on that one. Tuesday, the Tour Modifieds, which you saw here on Court Vision last night, they're at Southern National Motorsports Park. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. And then this series here, they go from the shortest track on the schedule to the longest track on the schedule. They hit the 4-mile road course out in Road America next Wednesday night. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern as well.
So we talk about, all the different kinds of sim racing content that you can take in. Really, you can get all the different kinds of content right here with 3 very different things in action 3 nights in a row. And I do love stock cars on road courses, so that may be an interesting one to see for round 6 in 1 week's time. That'll be a 35-lap race from Road America. But, of course, we kind of have to talk as well, Zay, not only about how, Martinsville itself races, but kind of where it falls in this calendar later this season. Aside from Rockingham in May, it's a lot of the bigger racetracks, the Texases, the Charlottes, the Michigans. So you kind of get this nitty-gritty one out of the way somewhat early on. And listen, I still think that Rockingham's going to be a super exciting one. In Richmond later on in the season, you got 2 races, the Alabama Pride Twin 100s as well. So there are still other racetracks that can lead to drama and excitement. But we were actually just talking before we went on air, the fact that a lot of leagues will actually be afraid of a place like Martinsville because they want everybody to be nice and, sunshines and rainbows and everybody to be happy, but kind of leaning into the bit of rivalry that can get brought out only 5 weeks into the season, though. I'm not sure how mad these drivers are yet. I mean, is there somebody that you're pissed off with? Are you looking for retribution already? Or maybe because it's early-ish in the season that these drivers will play nice. We are, of course, also looking, as this practice session now draws in the final couple of minutes, we're looking at a race that's 200 laps. So you can't really go at it and start knocking the doors and the bumpers off each other early. They probably still will, just maybe not necessarily the recommended course of action to take, but it is a long race. So the season is a battle of survival and attrition, but I think tonight as well, just this race, you can say the very same thing.
This is where you can make friends and make enemies as well, Evan. You got 200 laps here at Martinsville, 0.5 miles of a racetrack here. They call it the paperclip for a reason. This is where somebody could actually get retribution later on in the seasons. Talladegas, the Michigans, the Texases. That's really where you're going to have to wonder, if I bump a guy here and wreck him, when is that payback or retribution coming? Because it's such a tight, short racetrack that anything can happen. And you've got to start to wonder, who am I going to make mad? Do I want to make friends early so when I need that help later on the end of the season, I got it? Because here you can't win a season, but you can definitely lose a season if you make the wrong guy angry.
And as always, in this CORT National Series, David, qualifying is capped to the top 40 cars. So we were actually talking last week in Vegas about one or two drivers getting bumped by not being able to qualify in because there are no more than 40 spots available on the grid. But as you can see, I think the number 32 or 33 tonight. So looks like everybody going to be in the show, no matter how good that Q lap is as practice winds down.
Yeah, everyone's going to make the show, which is nice to see. 33 cars is in the server right now. Still potential of maybe getting one or two more here in this qualifying session, which is getting underway right now.
And it is a 5-minute, 2-lap qualifying effort, so it is going to be single cars, 2 trips around. Best qualifying time will set your spot on the grid. It also hasn't been a ton of time as we transition down to looking at qualifying since we've been into Martinsville, because the CORT National Series was here for the 2019 B campaign. The Grandfather Clock 400 was the second-to-last race of that season, won by Jordan Erickson. When you tend to be good at a racetrack like this, Zane, it is not by dumb luck. A lot of the time at the bigger racetracks, it opens things up for more drivers to be involved, but especially with this Xfinity car, which is a handful to handle no matter how big or small of a track that you're at with the package that we have on it. If you're good on a track like this, that comes down to tons of experience, and Erickson, the winner from the fall, was at the top of the practice charts with a 23.97, so as we head into Q, expect him to be one of the names up front. Could he possibly go back-to-back?
He might be able to go back-to-back. You called it out. He was the fastest on the speed charts during practice. Really strong today, and right now he's taking his qualify lap. And you got to wonder, is he going to put this car up on pole, or is he going to have a situation where he's going to have to drive through traffic as he's coming off the corners now?
And you can see it actually just got a couple of drivers as well as Aaron Bean, Jordan Erickson, watching them take their qualifying efforts. And Erickson, a 24.72, will put him to the top of the board tentatively. A little bit off of what he got in practice. That was lap number 1, so the 88 Ford comes around for the second trip, this time at a 4. Sideways off of the corner, kicking the back end out, unable to improve. So the best lap for him comes on the first lap, but with about 2/3 of the field down, he sits tentatively on pole.
And that might hold out just looking at the speed charts right now. Mike Husby, who ran a great race last night in the MH Design Series at Oxford Plains, sitting second at this moment with the 20.49. So these two guys are the only cars who have broke that 20.4 mark. Everyone else is sitting, Chad Holmes at a 20.51, and then Steven Taylor, a 20.52. So these two drivers are the top class of the field, and hopefully right now are going to sit front row.
Yeah, I would be surprised if somebody else is to still jump up. Just looking at the drivers who have yet to qualify, John Long may be the biggest challenger. He was second in practice. He goes out now. His lap time not in that time through. May not have got a clean lap in, so I don't think that would have counted for the 26 Ford. He's going to now try again. He was about 3/100ths of a second off of Erickson for the best time in that practice session earlier. Final time into turn 4 for him. Can he challenge? Oh. He slides right there in second. It was the closest. No, he got him. 4.39. He did. How about John Long on that second trip around?
I'm glad I didn't put money on Erickson to walk off with the pole here, because I would have been a broke man at the end of that session.
That's a good lap, and you talk about the pressure on the second one, because we followed Ericsson around, and he was kind of able to push that thing real hard because he didn't have, I guess actually the opposite. He already had a lap in the back pocket, so he was kind of okay. You go to John Long there, second lap. I mean, you hit the wall there. If it's not a clean lap, iRacing is not going to count your queue time. Martinsville is not a racetrack you want to be starting in the mid-20s at. So that took some guts to keep it up on the fence there and eventually put down to, but right now jumps to the top of the board in times. Still waiting on Anthony Hyatt, who was a top 10 car in practice, to put down a lap time. Robert Hill Jr. is on the racetrack now. He's spinning out of 4. You've also got Gross and Wilco as the 4 remaining drivers who still need to put down a time, but there's only about a minute left on the board, so if they're going to get out there, they got to get going now.
Looks like Robert Hill now is taking his laps again after spinning out, as you called out there, Evan. Was still waiting on, it looks like Gross actually spun as well. His car is looking the opposite direction down in the infield, or was that turn 4, I think, from what I can see here?
We talk about the lack of banking at Martinsville, so there's virtually no lateral grip at all. I saw Hill spin, and you mentioned the issues as well for Gross. Martinsville's only got 12 degrees of banking, and admittedly, it feels like maybe half of that, especially when you're coming up and off of the corner in the back end of the race car, because you're not really coming down any hill. You're pretty much just flatter actually going up and out of the banking, so the back end of the race car gets real loose. Hill gets a lap time in. He'll slide in, but looks like 13th position. Anthony Hyatt would have been the driver that I was going to look for, but with 20 seconds left in qualifying, I don't think he's going to qualify. He is in the session. You see Steve Lufender now get it out onto the track as well, but this may be an intentional move by Hyatt to not qualify and get in the back.
Maybe you can pick them off one at a time, hope the guys in front of them wreck out. But you talked about how this track handles. I actually went in earlier today, ran a couple of laps here at Martinsville, and I told Dan Boys afterwards, I'm glad I'm not racing tonight, because I couldn't get at least 2 laps in this track and in this car, in my Supra, to make the car go straight. I kept spinning every time off of 2 and off of 4.
And of course, it's and it's easy to talk about as well, how difficult it is, but when you drop down and into the field and you actually compete, you get an idea of how much more difficult it is. It looks hard enough from up here. There's a reason why I don't even try to put my virtual car down onto the racetrack, because it would just be a roadblock. I have occasionally, done the ghost car and did a test alongside some other cars just to see where I am. And at some of the bigger tracks, you could be within a couple of tenths of a second, but I don't think anyway here at Martinsville. And because, again, it is such a unique racetrack that a margin for error is so very thin as well. As we're getting off and into these corners, we mentioned that it's not a full field tonight, Zane. We're not at that 40 cap like we saw last week in Vegas, but still, you have 30-plus cars. That's still chaos.
That's 32 other drivers that could cause your night to be ruined, and at least another one that could end your day if you don't make the right moves in the corners. And with this, we talk about racing being a game of inches. Martinsville is one of those biggest testaments to a game of inches, because drivers are right there on top of each other at the start. Restarts happen. They're within matter of seconds and inches between each other. If a guy misses a break on entry, next thing you know, he's wadding up the field. If a guy gets a bad drive off the corner, he's collecting everyone behind him. So anything can happen at the paperclip.
And pointing your way through this event as the drivers work in their final little bit of warm-up session before we do get underway is you do need to survive these events, because unlike in series past, this is for one of the first times that this CORT National Series, first time since 2016, that this series does not have a playoff format. It is just 15 weeks of racing with 2 drops. A lot of the time, you're going to be like, all right, Dega might be my drop, Daytona might be my drop, but I mentioned earlier as well on the calendar, you got 2 Talladega races, you got Daytona, and you got Martinsville. Those are 4 racetracks where you've got maybe a 50-50 shot of getting your stuff messed up. Really, it could happen at no fault of your own. So the way that this format has changed as well is you may see drivers, in and around. I mentioned that 2nd through 9th in the championship standings did not have wins yet. Those are the drivers, I think, who may not make that crazy move for the win and just kind of take the top 5, take the top 10, keep the race car in one piece, and kind of walk away with the result just based on how the championship's going to be awarded this year compared to series past.
And this season really specifies and emphasizes consistency is key. You don't have a playoff to lock you in and protect you going into the next rounds. You have to be on your game week in, week out. And you talked about it, Talladega. here at Martinsville. Heck, even Rockingham, we mentioned it earlier in the broadcast. That could be a tricky track for a lot of these drivers once they go into it in a couple weeks.
The final warm-up session is getting set to wind down. David, we're about ready to roll for round number 5. What are we going to be looking for here?
Well, you're going to be looking for tempers. You're going to be looking for some tight quarter racing, and a lot of people tend to view Martinsville as a one, like you guys said earlier, a race that you would just want to get through, and that might be the case here tonight for a good chunk of the field. But hey, Jordan Erickson's a favorite here. Stephen Taylor's got 3 CORT victories in the Premier Series here at Martinsville. So the table's wide open as to who could win this thing.
They're down on the grid, so let's go trackside and take a look at your Court Vision starting lineup, and it is John Long on a pole position. That 24.39 squeaked out the win over the qualifying session atop Jordan Erickson, who starts in second, so watch those two tonight. You've also got Mike Husby starting in third, with Chad Holmes in fourth. Back in row 3, Stephen Taylor rolls in P5, and Tony Johns is sixth. Brett Black in 7th position, with Jake Finch at 8th. Mitchell Riggs in the number 9 position, and Brandon Ward rounds out the top 10.
Got Julian Medor starting 11th, and then Tyler Tucker on his outside starting 12th. Robert Hill is going to be in the 13th position. Alex Ripstein, if I butchered your name, I apologize, will be 14th. You can talk to me later. Patrick Lindsay is going to be 15th. On his outside will be DeMont Dotson. You got Caton Bombersbach? How do you say that name?
Bombersbach.
Bombersbach. Yeah, I was going to defer to David on that one.
Matt Harrington is going to be 19th. You got Aaron Bean, and then rounding out the top 20 will be here. Let's take a look at this beautiful name, Darren Warren. That's an easy one, guys. That was way easy.
Yeah, nice and easy. We got 10 more cars as well who qualified up through 30th. It'll be Jeffrey Miller, Steve Luvender, 21st and 22nd. Philip Clark and Mason Dunn, 23rd, 24th. Followed by Matt Wood in 25th spot. You got Johnny Parham in 26th. James Gouda, 27th position. And then a couple of rookies. Eric Hagg, 28th. Roger Espinosa, 29th. Steve Boland, the final car to take a time in queue. He'll be 30th. The provisionals go to Hyatt, Wilco, and Gross, 31st, 32nd, and 33rd. The tail of the tape for the half mile of mayhem, 0.526 miles around this asphalt concrete oval, 12 degrees banking in the quarters, 200 laps of action due up now for the CORT National Series. Happy that you're hanging out with us on CORT Vision. The pace cars off and away as we say, let's go racing from Martinsville, underway for round 5. Single filed out up at the front of the field, first time through it. John Long able to defend. Single file behind as well, so no big issues off of the start. First battle, I think, is going to be Brett Black in the 8-car. Jake Finch, who's trying to go a long way around. You don't want to get up and onto that asphalt, though. You're trying to stay down on the concrete, the bottom half, as the 8 and the 4-car fight side by side.
And you're watching a lot of it right now. Deep backer in the pack there. I mean, there's 2x2, too wide through the corners. That's not going to help anybody out. But up front, I hear a caution already coming out over race control, so I think we got a first caution of the night.
An early yellow, trying to identify who is involved in this one. There was a big stack of cars in turn 2, and I think it may have been Matt Wood in the 69 machine. I think that is where the incident's going to come from, and kind of fitting that I mentioned pre-race that all these cars get it into the corners where it's going to be real tight, and you'll see the contact comes after Wood gets some help from Mason Dunn, which has got onto the binders way harder than the 21 was expecting. I think he had checked up sooner just to kind of give those cars in front of him some space, and Mason Dunn sent him around with the punt, and that was not the only incident, because when one car gets sideways, that's about 50% of the racetrack blocked, so nobody else was really able to get on to by, so an early caution flag comes down from the tower and will pace behind the 26.
And if I remember correctly, they only got about almost 2 laps in, so they may go single file, maybe double file. The rules are interesting here with CORT. This is my second night calling them, but they have a very interesting rule system here where if it doesn't get 2 laps of green, they go to single file restarts. If they get over 2 laps of green, they go back to double file. So that's going to be very close of how many laps they got completed there.
And that played a big factor in that race in this national series last Wednesday, where drivers were trying to make a late race move to challenge eventual race winner Johnny Eckert for the race win, unable to do so because all those late race restarts were single file, and it took them X amount of time just to kind of get back up and into a position, where they can actually make it a fight for the spot. So, of course, that would be a factor if we get later on in this race, but so far not going to be that concerned. It would certainly string things out, which may help, the start of this race break out into some green flag action, but I don't think necessarily do or die is, you saw it there. The top 10 kind of single filed themselves out right away almost.
Yeah, definitely single filed themselves out. Then probably 12th on back. They're still too wide, deeper back in the pack in the eye of the storm. They were definitely too wide. We saw a little bit of 3-wide action in some of the instances of the track. But right now, I think these guys are just trying to get through this first stint of the race, get to that 50% mark, and then see how their cars are going to handle through the rest of the race right now. As it does look like, Evan, they are going to go double file restarts this time.
But they will double this one up. It'll be John Long, control car still. He's the Duncan sponsor, number 26 car on the inside line. Jordan Erickson alongside in that 88 car. It looks like Matt Wood and Mason Dunn both lose their lead lap status after being involved in the incident that'll bring the number of lead lap cars down to 31. Race cars off the way, and the 26 can actually control this restart at a turn 4. Green flag back in the air, but Jordan Erickson's on top, and he's actually in front with the nose off into turn 1. What a challenge on the outside for Erickson. He can't get cleared as here comes Long side by side for the lead.
2 by 2 for the lead here. Erickson still on the outside, Long on the inside, trying to power it down to catch up with them. But right now, it's like a drag race down the front stretch. I'm so confused right now. I get better, Dan Boy's better binoculars. That's my next contract.
I'll tell you what, Erickson up on the outside. Yeah, I thought he was clear that time going off into 1, but I feel like that was his best opportunity. I really thought when this 26 car got to the bottom, he was going to get him awfully close there as they squeeze in 3 and 4, and it is now officially new race leader Jordan Erickson. He clears for the number 1 spot. It's all his. Long's got a tuck and line behind in second position.
Diving into 3, Erickson still leading Long, but we watched it earlier when they were double file there. Erickson squeezed the 26 just a little bit in the corners to get that run, kind of tank slap the outside wall, but enough momentum to push him in front of this 26.
Side-by-side action up front, no soccer here at Martinsville Speedway. I mentioned that 2019 B race here from last fall in December. That was the second closest finish in series history. That one came down to 9 1/1000ths of a second. So nobody is to say that Martinsville is only a racetrack where you beat each other up. It can also produce some great action. Looking a little bit further back in the back, I think the first battle is with the 84 of Hill and the 57 of Brandon Ward. That would be 10th and 11th position. You can see there they are side by side off of 2, now down into quarter 3 with Ward up on the outside, and if I'm the 57, Carlo in the 9 behind. Lindsay, what a save. I was just about to say, Zane, I want to make that pass because there's a big line in behind me that I can't crack, but with that 9 car messing up, the 57's able to tuck in.
Yeah, Lindsay definitely got lucky there in the 9 car, got sideways, hard on the brakes, trying to watch these 2 guys battle. But up front, Evan, we got a battle for 3rd place right now between Husby and Taylor.
Yeah, Husby, the 6 car, is the one who's trying to play defense, and Stephen Taylor on the attack. He passed Chad Holmes off of the restart, and he looks to go +2 since we went back green. He's got the preferred lane. You can already see all that rubber kitty to put down, and yes, sir, he's got it. So Stephen Taylor up into 3rd position. Of course, one of the more successful drivers in series history here at Martinsville. He's finished in the top 5 in 6 of the 7 races.
And you watch right now, I'm watching this battle between Husby and Taylor, and you're seeing Husby almost send that car into the corners. This time doesn't quite get to the bumper, but now that's letting the 8 car of Jake Finch slowly creep up as Husby's trying to pedal that machine.
A couple of big movers here and there, but for the most part, everybody up front has kind of held their own. You mentioned Finch moving up. He was able to get around Tony Johns, who falls to 7th. That 31 machine was one that was in the conversation last week. And just behind him as well, you got Julian Bador. He started in 11th position, has climbed his way up to 8th, so he's also been on the move. Drivers try to make some early moves, but that left-hand side of your screen, you can see the intervals back in the back starting to trail off, but it cycles back through to the top. You'll see that Jordan Erickson's advantage for the lead at about a half a second. So not bad for the 88 cars. Once he's gotten into the clean air, he's been better that time by another half a tenth faster than long behind him.
17 laps in the book, lap 18 being worked on, and Ericsson right now, Evan, is on a Sunday cruise on a Wednesday as everyone is trying to catch him.
I'll tell you what, with how empty the roads have been, I think a Sunday cruise is just about any time out. This is the most traffic you're going to see at all, and it comes on iRacing at Martinsville. Just kind of looking through the pack, and it looks like everybody's done a really good job of single-filing things out, and for Martinsville, it's a 200-lap race. That doesn't translate into that long mileage-wise, just a bit over 100 laps, or 100 miles, I should say, with the racetrack clocking in just a smidge over a half a mile in length. But, once you get green, you're looking at 21, 22, maybe second lap times at the end of the run here. I mean, can start to click off and go by pretty quickly. So just keep it in mind, we're only 20 laps in of 200, but give it 5-10 minutes and we'll be talking about quarter distance. And as this race continues to work on, watch the intervals, because the key here is just to not lose touch with everybody. You don't necessarily need to be beating and banging and trying to pass every single time by. There are so many different opportunities to make mistakes and give up time here at Martinsville that is so tough to get back that I think the long run would be a really good way to end this race and to run it out, because you'd really be able to see who's got that finesse in that car control.
The finesse in the car control is the biggest thing, especially once these tires start to go and these cars start to get on those long runs. Well, what we're seeing right now is everyone is single filing out, but you're starting to see distinctive groups build up, almost like a conductor of a train leading another line, and then about 12 car lengths between the next group of drivers trying to run down this front pack.
Jordan Erickson still leads, but he's no longer running away. You see Tony Johns there as well. Behind him is Julian Medor. So, all these drivers just trying to stay in those little groups that you mentioned. And, you'll have some more separation. In fact, John Long's actually been able to close back in on Erickson. So his Sunday stroll may be cut short here as the 26 wants to challenge him. And then you got kind of Stephen Taylor in the middle there, third. But, then it's Husby and Holmes and Finch. I mean, 4, 5, 6, they're a lot closer together than I think most positions are on the racetrack here, as I would give them, 7, 6 tenths amongst the three of them there. So there are going to be those groups of race cars when you kind of settle into a green flag run and you realize, hey, my race pace is kind of very similar to this guy. And, it doesn't even have to be a driver that you dislike or a driver that you've, had a run-in with. It'll just get annoying to do 200 laps on the bumper of somebody, the same person, or vice versa, having them on the bumper of you all night long. That's where you may see some impatience come into play early. But I'll tell you what, 25 laps in of 200 for Martinsville. So far, so good. Again, it's Erickson, who started in second. He's your leader.
He's our leader right now, Evan, but the problem that he's going to run into right now is 21 of Mason Dunn, a strong driver last night in the MH Design Series for CORT here. He's the lap down car. He's about to be run up on Erickson, which could open the door for Long in that 26 Dunkin' Donuts machine, which makes me hungry for donuts. As you see Erickson right now work on the 21 on the inside to get around him. Can Long capitalize here? Can't quite make it. He's going to look to the inside now to get around the 21 as well, but Erickson just creating more of a space in the gap as he works in the next lap down car.
Yeah, that whole exchange actually benefited Erickson and hurt Long, because Erickson was able to catch him off of 4. He was able to take his normal exit, then get to the inside, whereas Long lost on entry of 2 and entrance to turn 3. And you can see the lap car holding the outside line there. You can go up high. Nobody's really running up and in the dark stuff. They're all down, again, as close down to the curb of the grass as you can. But the problem is when you come off of the corner, without the banking to kind of help you, you're swinging this thing as wide as you can. And I mean, that little bit of a hold up, it's not anything that Boland or anybody else did intentionally, for Devontae Dodson as well, who goes a lap down, but that cost him 3 tenths. So the difference between your race leader goes from 3 or 4 down to 7 tenths of a second. I mean, just like that. If we stay green for an extended period of time, there's going to be times where Erickson is disadvantaged. There's going to be times where Long is. So it'll be also fun to see how aggressive are these drivers going to be around lap traffic. Are they going to force the issue, be up on the wheel, and try to get every little tenth or thousandth that they can out of it? or do you just play it safe and not want to force the issue? Because, like I said, it worked in Ericsson's favor this time. Next time by, it could totally be the opposite. 21-second lap time for your race leader. If you look at the back of the pack, there's about 7 or 8 cars within about 10 seconds of him coming up behind him. So your race leader is not going to enjoy clean air, literally, maybe figuratively. Although he's ahead of John Long, he's going to have a busy race through as you go on board with Taylor, who rides in third, looking up to the 26 along. Maybe he'll challenge for P2.
And Taylor, probably the biggest winner out of that transition between those lap traffic cars, was able to sneak up to Long there, as we are on board with them right now. But the interesting factor here is this is where Ericsson's going to really start having to wheel in and deal in as a leader, talking to his spotter, talking to his team, trying to get some of these lap traffic cars out of his way. From what I've seen, drivers are really respectful here, where they do move up out of the racing groove, let these leaders race it out. But if Ericsson can time it like you talked about, Evan, he can use a pick to hold up, the 26 of Long and Taylor to stretch his lead out a little bit more.
And you also have to wonder if you've got a teammate in front or somebody else behind. Not that they're going to intentionally, how do you word it? Not intentionally mess somebody up, but maybe just be a little bit less courteous as well. Maybe that's how you get your retribution. Maybe not necessarily bumping somebody, but just, hey, maybe I'll take the bottom line when the lapped car is coming up behind me and I'm going to, keep my preferred lane. Maybe that's how they get back at you. Long caught the fence that time on the front straightaway. You saw that little bit of a wiggle from the Duncan Ford Mustang. It is still in second spot. Not a ton of moves since then. And as your race leader, so single file, still dealing with traffic. Did want to give a call to Aaron Bean in the 20 car. We had been looking at him a little bit earlier on this evening. He's our biggest mover right now, up inside of the top 15. Started 19th position. He runs in 12th. To get all of that only with that one yellow, so really hasn't had ample opportunities to have cars come back at a race yard. So that's one of your more consistent drivers. I'd shout him and Anthony Hyatt, who started 31st and is up to 20th as the big movers so far in the opening quarter of the race.
And I think a lot of drivers at this moment, Evan, are getting into their rhythm. They're starting to feel out the track. The track's starting to rubber up here for them. So they're able to get on the gas, off the gas, on the gas, off the gas. Almost like, a hip-hop track that you're listening to in your headphones while you're racing, just to keep that momentum going on. And Ericsson right now is like a machine. He's on it, off it, on it, off it, and no one can really even seem to close that gap as he's starting to run up on some more lap traffic here, which could open the door for the 26 along. But I think everyone right now has finally gotten to their race pace and just waiting for the first green flag stops to happen for them.
And that next car up is going to be the 91 of Johnny Parham, of course, last driver on the lead lap right now in P28. But you'll note that car does not have a front clip at all. So right now you're lapping a driver that has a significant speed disadvantage. Unless Parham doing the sportsmanship-like thing and he'll get up and out of the way. But right there, again, you can see that second-place car in Long can't go up to the fence off of the corner. That hurts him. Behind Taylor, can't get the wide arc into the corner. That hurts him. So, Ericsson has been very fortunate. It doesn't hurt him a lot. We're talking about hundredths of a second that you're losing, but that'll add up if you keep being the unlucky one, whereas Ericsson has kind of caught all this lap traffic in a good spot. The point that I was going to make before I got on that tangent was the fact that, it's different passing a car that's got no nose that is way off of the pace in, 20th or 25th than it is passing a car in 15th and then the car in 10th. So the longer this goes on, not only is the traffic going to get thicker, but the traffic is going to get tougher to pass. And if you start to catch drivers who are actually in a battle for position in their own right, they may be less inclined to get way out of the way. So it's only going to get more challenging for Ericsson. Look in front of him now. He's got 3 cars stacked up in Wilco, Gross, and Luvender. Those are all cars that are fighting for position right now, as Wilco will nod the head and get up and out of the way.
But some of these guys up front, like you talked about, the 18 and the 97 now racing side by side in front of a race leader. He's got to find a hole shot to get through these two. But some of these drivers, as you talked about, as you move deeper in the field, they're going to become harder to pass than a kidney stone at certain points because they don't want to lose that position. It's going to open up the door for someone to pass them.
And you can see right there, Ericsson's going to make the move on the inside of the 19 to Luvender, who had just lost out in that exchange with Jeff Gross, who was one of the drivers that we talked about not taking the time into qualifying. I know Luvender did queue. It was Gross, Wilco, and I think Hyatt were the 3 drivers who opted not to queue and started in the back. And you can see for Ericsson here, in the boxed in, takes him a little bit of time to clear. He is, though, that time at a 2. He's back in front, and now as Luvender goes for for the retribution. Oh, got a little bit sideways on the brakes that time. That was almost a pucker moment. This is now all happening in front of John Long in second. He's stuck.
This is what John Long doesn't want to see right now. The 97 and the 19 battling it out in front of him. He wants these two just to slide up out of the racing groove, let him go by, because as he's watching this fight happen, Ericsson is getting smaller and smaller in his windshield.
19, gets up and out of the way. So long he's able to get on through, he'll bring Steven Taylor with. But Ericsson, I don't know, do you think it's a combination of luck and skill? Because he's hitting these lapped cars at the right time, but that could be just a matter of setting it up. And maybe drivers will be more inclined, to get way out of the leader's way, maybe paying more attention as the blue flag plops up maybe from the spotter stand or from the flag stand, letting them know, hey, the fastest car around is coming, and move up and get out of the way than they are for the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on and so forth cars in line, because this is not a challenge that your top 3, top 5, what have you, are dealing with exclusively. Everybody in the field dealing with lap traffic. Doesn't matter if you're the race leader or you're the lapped car that he's passing. You really don't like dealing with different speeds traffics, especially again when spots are on the line and you're fighting for position. Race lead down to 1.5 seconds. It's the biggest it's been all night.
I think Ericsson, really honestly, to go back to your point there, Evan, I think Ericsson is actually picking those marks and those moments to strike. There's a few times where you see him a little softer on the throttle coming off the corners, and I think that's just him trying to figure out the moments to get that spot picked up.
Looks like the Matt Wood machine, who was involved in the incident earlier, has dropped out as that scoring pylon on the left-hand side. It gets all the way to the bottom, so Wood adopts it all the way down as there's that fight now down the back straightaway and on through the 42 of Taylor and the 26 along. So Steven Taylor makes the pass. We've noted his success here at Martinsville. No surprise that Ericsson, the defending winner, has been able to get to the race lead. No surprise that one of the best drivers in the CORT National Series here at the Paperclip is moving forward into second. So not a disastrous start for Long, but after starting from pole position, wasn't able to make use of that clean air up front. And now that he's in third, he does have about a 2-second buffer back to Mike Husby, so he should be pretty comfy in that spot. As see a couple of cars down to the pit lane, but none of your race leaders quite yet, as we're a quarter of the way through already from Martinsville. 51 laps going to be complete this time by of 200 on the scoring pylon.
And what's really interesting to talk about here is right now I'm watching Taylor, who just made that move on Long about 1.5 laps, 2 laps ago. And Long is just falling back. He can't maintain the same momentum and speed he had earlier in this run, as now Long is starting to stretch his legs and trying to run down our leader of Ericsson.
He has a good opportunity here because, for Steven Taylor in second up to Jordan Ericsson, there is no lap traffic. And if you look in front of Ericsson, there is a wall of race cars. You can see him there coming off and turn to him. And look at the back straightaway. These are not slow cars. These are, rated around P20, side by side, fighting for position. Ericsson's going to have his hands full here, while all this time Taylor's got clean track behind. How is he? Well, this time by Jordan Ericsson put down a 21.662. That was a 5.74 for Taylor. So the car in second position, about 1/10 second better that time through. If Ericsson gets held up at all by this huge line of cars in front, we could see that 42 car on his bumper before we know it.
But the perks of being the leader is you're the Pied Piper of the race. You now dictate the pace of this race. So he could be just slowing up a little bit, giving himself some room, some wiggle room, you could say, to get around this lap traffic. There was a wall, as we called it, in front of him. Drivers too wide. Now they're single filed back out as Ericsson is at the 21 there. Gets around the 21, moves his way up and around, puts him a lap down. But that's going to just increase his gap a little bit on the 42.
He makes the pass. 21 car did the right thing, get up and out of the way. So done, in fact, 4 laps down, and maybe more acute to getting out of the way because it was not actually funny with any of those other lapped cars for position. Or as you do see Eric Hag and Alex Ripstein fighting with the Donnie 3 machine of Boyland as well. So the lapped cars that your race leaders trying to pass are dealing with lap traffic of their own. There's layers to this battle as Ericsson gets by on the bottom. Don't look now, but Taylor, if he gets by the 21 quick, he's within a second now with the 88 car.
He's within a second of the 88 car, and Ericsson right now has got the 66 of Matt Wood in front of him. And I couldn't get an eye on the car that was in front of Matt Wood there as they're racing it out. But now the door is starting to get, that gap is starting to get smaller. Now, can Taylor hold on to run down Ericsson to make a clean pass as he works on the 21 of Dunn here to get around him, trying to squeeze up as close as he can to the 88's bumper.
Yeah, and even the 42 kind of squeezed up onto the 21 there and kind of said it without saying, hey, get up and out of the way. Let me clear you off in the corner here. So he pushed him up, and you can see the contact in front nearly as the 66 car of Eric Hag was up top. That was Ericsson trying to get on by, but Hag tried to make a pass in his own right, got sideways, and your race leader, if there's one thing that you cannot see aside from a caution, is a car sideways right in front of you.
Yeah, and that's the scariest moment as the leader. You go, no, please don't wreck in front of me. Don't spin out. I got nowhere to go, especially at this track. And Ericsson got around it, but take a look. Taylor right now, about 2 car lengths and a half away from our race leader of Ericsson as he works on another lap down car of the 49. That's going to be Ripstein.
Ripstein stays up and out of the way. He will fall another lap down as he actually goes first lap down, scored into position number 22. Do also want to give a call. I mentioned the 2 rookies in this race, the likes of Eric Hag and Roger Espinosa. So those 2 drivers right now, Hag 23rd, Espinosa 28th position. So just kind of a shout out to the rookies. And kind of on that note as well, combining the talk of the rookies with the talk of how these drivers navigate lap traffic, David, you would know as good as anybody else the dynamic between all of the drivers in this Wednesday night series. You think they're going to be playing nice all night long with this lap traffic? It seems like they've been behaving so far.
Yeah, for now. It might not be. Call me in about 20 or 30 or 40 laps from now when we get past the halfway point. And that's when the tempers start to flare at Martinsville in this series. I want to give a quick shout out real quick to Chad Holmes, who's running in the 5th spot. Chad having a really good run in the 5th spot. I also want to give a quick shout out to Jake Finch. Jake Finch has a DNQ, the season opener at Daytona, and here he is running in the 7th spot. This is his 2nd race of the season, running a partial schedule, and Jake having a good run in the 7th spot.
I hear the tick-tock of that Martinsville grandfather clock counting down to the second half of the race, because that's where we may see the gloves come off. It isn't going to get any easier for Ericsson. Again, still clean and green after that opening caution flag on, just a handful of laps into the race here. We have been at it since now. 65 as the battle for the race lead is on. There's Taylor. He has caught Ericsson through the traffic. He's on the inside, and here we go. Side by side for the lead with a whole lot of lap traffic in front of him.
Ericsson moved up a little bit, almost like he was going to create a pick with this lap traffic, but that opened up the door for Taylor as they're still side by side as they come through turn 2, down the backstretch, and a wall of lap traffic in front of them.
I don't even know if they're going to get up to the lap traffic. They're holding each other up as they stay glued on each other's doors. Look at the 42 that time. Pushed up Ericsson. Wanted him to get off of the door. And first time tonight, Steven Taylor leading at the completion of lap number 66. But he can't go anywhere. The 55 is in front of him. On the outside, Ericsson can't go anywhere because he's dealing with the 70, Davis Warren. So there is nowhere for the race leaders to go. And at time of 4, look at the crossover. We're going to go 3 wide on the front straightaway as Ericsson gets to the bottom of Taylor. Both of them around traffic as he does not want to give this one up, but it is Taylor at a turn 2 who clears for P1.
That was like a heavyweight fight right there, watching Ericsson trying to be the crossover king there to put the move on Taylor. Not enough momentum to make the pass or get to his door as Taylor's starting to stretch his legs a little bit, running down the 55.
Great challenge. I'm not sure if that 3 wide was going to work with it went down the front straightaway. Thought that may have been shades of Ryan Newman a la Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, but all those cars were able to actually make it down through turn number 1. And again, that valiant crossover effort by Ericsson falls just a little bit shy, so he ends up in 2nd. Taylor, the race leader, and for the 42 machine, I mean, it's kind of zero net gain. They really haven't passed any of these lappers. Still behind the 55 car. The 11's going to go by on the outside. That's Espinosa, who's going to go 2 laps down. But again, like I said, these lap cars are going to get harder and harder to pass. Sure, Steven Taylor's better than Tyler Tucker in 20th position. There's no doubt, Zane, your race leader's better than the 20th fastest car on track. But the margin between the two is nowhere near as big as it has been. You just can't pass him right now.
You can't get to him. You can't quite clear him. You got to really start to wonder, is this where the tire wear factor is coming into play for these guys? because I've been watching Ericsson sitting back there in second. His line has changed from the beginning of the race. We're just at lap 71 completed, lap 72 of 200, and he can't quite close that gap on Taylor no more, while Taylor's right there on the bumper of the 55. Can he give him a little shot saying, Tucker, I need you to move. I got places to be right now because I got an 88 that's hungry for a win.
Yeah, this 88 machine I don't think is done yet, and I'm not sure if I can definitively say if Taylor's the better car now or if Ericsson, again, just really got hurt by the traffic. Again, we had kind of been complimenting him on how well he had navigated the traffic earlier, and maybe the times had simply changed, but I do think if this thing were to break out clear and there was open racetrack in front, I'd say probably Taylor's got a better race car right now, but again, you can't say definitively, and that's kind of the thing that makes Martinsville so fun is very rarely can a race leader run away with things. This lap traffic is going to be a factor all night. I was kind of searching, and I thought John Long in third may have been closing in more than he has. He is still 2 seconds back. Thought maybe all of the battling up front had allowed him to reel in the top cars. Not the case. In fact, Mike Husby may be the one to watch. Husby's only about a second off of the bumper along. He's actually been steadily closing in, so maybe fourth and third would be the next battle to be up for grabs as Husby goes inside traffic.
I don't mean to interrupt you there, Evan, but right now Ericsson just moved into the lead over Taylor. Taylor gave a shot to the 55 there of Tucker, which opened the door, and now Ericsson's driving away.
Yeah, we're going to get a second look at this one. This happened as we were looking back at the back, and it was a good catch there. The 55 was just kind of all out of control. There was a car down in the grass. You can see slowing it back straight away. The 25 was down in the grass. That's Philip Clark, and I think that spooked the 55 machine in front of your race leaders. And Tyler Tucker, he checked up to the 42. And Taylor tried to pass him on the bottom, ended up getting into his quarter panel. And just like that, the 88's around in front. We're not done yet. Look at that. The 88 car almost got squeezed down in 1 and 2, but he was able to find a spot. And I talked about drivers getting annoyed to see in the same front or rear bumper all night long. I wonder how much longer that 55 of Tucker's is going to stay in one piece.
The 55 of Tucker, and then taking a look here, it looks like the 42 of Taylor's also got a little bit of rear end damage in that right rear. So that may affect him here a little bit at Martinsville. It's not a lot of aero, but it is going to help your handling, or break your handling, should we say. But watch Ericsson in that 88. He's completely shifted that line. On entry, he's leaving the door open for the 42 of Taylor to sneak that nose in. And if Ericsson cuts down, he's going to go for a ride, and it's going to be no one's fault but his own.
93 car going to stamp it out of the way, so the race leaders able to cycle on through in this exchange. Again, there's a couple of other battles on track. Chad Holmes, Tony Johns, they're not that far apart, P5 and 6, but the race leaders in all of this traffic remains, kind of the fight to watch. As you can see, the interval back there in the back. There's a couple of other cars here and there. Lindsay and Hill, 11th and 12th. They aren't that far apart either, but I think it goes to show us we should not take our eyes off of the race leaders, because if we do, we miss something, and it serves us right, because we've seen how quickly things are evolving and changing at the very front.
As Michael Waltrip once coined the phrase, in a blink of an eye, anything can change. As you watch Ericsson get a little loose through the entry of that corner off middle, now he's still got it going straight, but he keeps opening that door for Taylor. Look at him. A little higher in that corner, comes off, and just tries to slowly close the door on the 42 as they get off the exit. But I think if Taylor sends it, hashtag sends it, as the kids say on the Twitterverse, it's going to be Taylor's position.
Well, there was almost, in fact, I think they did get into each other when Ericsson had been rounding outside after Taylor had gotten into the lap car. The 88 was kind of leaning on his door, and I don't know if that's where this damage comes from, but if we get a shot maybe down into turn 1, look for the right rear quarter panel of the 42. I mean, it is torn up. He is no longer clean and green like he was off of the top. That car is taking a lick. It keeps on ticking so far. But as we close in, right now working lap 83, almost halfway home, and his grandfather clock 200 or 400 rather. Race leaders are, right in the thick of things. Next car up, the 20 machine, Aaron Bean, 17th position. They're able to get on by him as he gives that preferred spot up. It's funny, when your race leaders caught Tyler Tucker, I think he was in 20th, and he's only continuing to move up. He's P17. He's kind of getting better as the long run goes on, and maybe that's why your race leaders can't get around him.
I think the 55 got a fire lit under him once he saw the 88 and the 42 right in his rearview mirror, because he has picked up the pace, and he is almost becoming the Ryan Newman, and no disrespect, but the hardest car to pass on the track right now for our leaders of Ericsson and Taylor.
He is playing that de facto Newman role, or role back in, right now for him is 18th position, the likes of James Gouda, Anthony Hyatt, and some of the other cars that admittedly surprised that, Anthony Hyatt, I guess, I can look at this two ways, because Anthony Hyatt was one of the top cars at a practice day, and eventually I was surprised he didn't qualify. He started 31st, he rides in 16th. That sounds fantastic. He's halfway through the field. Problem is, he's 20 seconds off of the race leader, about to get lapped.
He's 20 seconds off the race leader, but he's one of the biggest movers. Almost halfway through the field, he's put himself up to 16th, but now he's trying to get around the 40, work his way up through traffic. I'm sorry, he is the 40. What am I talking about? Better binoculars. David Danboys, blaming you again.
We're working on it.
I'm just saying, these are like horse track binoculars. They're so tiny and small and made out of brass. They're hot.
To be fair, it's an old press box here at Martinsville. It ain't the best either.
It is, but take a look right now, Evan. The 42 of Taylor right back on the bumper of the 88 of Ericsson again, trying to close that gap and make a move. He's peeked to the inside a few times as they're coming down the backstretch into 3. When's the moment that Taylor just says, you know what, I got to get this 88 out of my way?
And he was laying it on him that time in turn 3, but opted not to make the move. A big slide at a turn 4. So if you think Steven Taylor's not going for it, right there I'll show you that he wants to get to the race lead here at the paperclip. And it is interesting because the lapped cars are pulling away from Ericsson and company. They're no longer all over the back of the 55. Heck, in that shot in turn 3, you couldn't even see him. So the 88 machine, I don't know if Ericsson's pace has really dropped off. He just ran a 22 flat. He seems his fall off is pretty consistent. I don't think he's kind of fallen off of a cliff or anything, but those lapped cars are no longer under fire, and maybe Steven Taylor feels like the 88 doesn't have an excuse anymore. I would not be shocked at all if he gets to the bumper again if he goes to try it.
And Taylor, Ericsson, I apologize, has really been changing that line, trying to find some grip and some drive off that corners. As we see it right now, coming off of 2, trying to make that shot down the backstretch. Taylor looking to the inside every time. He's kind of moved and creeped himself down a little further on the infield as he comes off the corners. And I think he's expecting either Ericsson to lose it or tank slap the outside wall, as he's been really close a few times.
And you wonder if that's going to spook him as well. A lot of the time, if you're kind of in a groove and you're hitting your marks and everything's going right, then you are going to be a little bit more aggressive. It looked like even that time off of the corner, Taylor's kind of staying away from the ball. I'm not sure if he's pushing it as hard as he can, even though that car is still getting sideways. Don't get me wrong. He's working that race car. But I don't know if he's on the edge, and I think that Ericsson, who really hasn't had those big missteps, and even as well for the 88, when he loses the race lead, he's been able to get back up into that position. But he's been a consistent car all night. Maybe he's got some more confidence. As we were just talking about how race leaders were falling back from the traffic, and here we go again as we get set to dance. Goes back in, but a couple of car lengths off in the back of the 55 of Tucker, and is a big line of lap traffic. 4 or 5 cars deep with some side-by-side in the mix as well. Could this be Taylor's opening?
This could be Taylor's opening. Tucker right now closing the door. Taylor looking to the inside of Ericsson as they come off of 3, Evan, and that was all Taylor's doing. Ericsson tried to find a pick, couldn't quite do it, and that let Taylor sneak right back up into this mix.
He got just a little bit of curb on the exit at turn 4 and was able to get to the inside, but at that point, the car was too unsettled. Couldn't get the right foot down. There's contact in front of your race leaders with lap traffic. Look out! Woo-hoo! Ericsson, Taylor, hard on the brakes and somehow stay out of that. I thought for sure they were going to be junked, as these lapped cars are all over each other.
Ludenberg now in front of Ericsson in the 88, Ludenberg in the 19. Now Ericsson's got to try to find his mark, but the biggest loser right now could be Taylor, as he's now battling with Tucker on his outside. Can't get back on the throttle like he needs to get the drive off the corner, which is going to let Ericsson start to drive away.
The 55 just was way wide in turn 1, and that's the only reason why Jordan Ericsson was able to pass the 19 car, also sideways of Luvender, as you mentioned the adventures he's had the last couple of times by. But if I'm Steven Taylor, I'm pretty annoyed right now. I just think he cleared the 55, and he finally has done it. What, some 40 laps later, they finally get around the lap traffic and put Tyler Tucker down a lap again. Moving it out for position, and a caution flag just shy of halfway at 97 as Matt Harrington's around on the front.
And this is probably what our race leaders would like to see as a caution at this point. Let them go down pit road, make some adjustments, get some fresh Goodyears on them, and some virtual Sunoco race fuel, because those cars were being pushed to the limits. We're starting to see them really start to change those lines and the arcs, and now they're going to get that lap traffic out of their way, Evan, and have some clean real estate in front of them.
Yeah, they don't really have to gamble on if they're going to stay out or whatever. It kind of makes it an easier decision, as you'll see your race leaders dive down to the pit lane on the entry at turn number 3. Of course, we were able to make it to this halfway point with only one yellow, so assuming, based on, I guess, just how this race plays out, you could be looking at the final trip down to the pit lane for service this evening. So they're going to go all the way down. It is a very unique and tight quarters pit road here at Martinsville Speedway. First couple of stalls and the furthest couple of stalls through the corner makes it interesting, as they look to go probably for 4 tires.
Definitely 4 tires. If you don't take 4 tires, there's something wrong with your crew chief, and you may want to have a long, stern conversation with them at the end of the race, especially since these guys went 100 laps on this set of tires, and we only really started to see the drop-off form about 80 laps into that run.
Burns it out of the pit lane. Erickson, nice and easy, stays in front. It'll be Taylor in second. Looks like third off of the pit lane, John Long, followed by Holmes, Johns, Ward, and Husby. That 6 car dropping about 3-4 spots because he overshot the pit stall. Got in a little bit too deep. 6 car had to back it up to get the jack up. It only cost him about a second, but a second under the pit lane on caution flag conditions is easily those 3-4 spots. So Husby was, I think, in third or fourth, and he's P8. So that is a big hit for the 6 car.
That's the biggest hit right there for him. He was strong, sitting there in third most of the race in that first green flag stint. And as a man who overshoots his pit box more than I like to admit, I feel his pain right now.
Jordan Erickson already with a race win this season. We had kind of talked a little bit off of the top about what was a short track and what wasn't, and we've been to Iowa, and as I said, I call it a short track by NASCAR national touring car level standards and whatnot, but Martinsville is certainly a lot more in that realm. But I also said, in terms of Erickson winning the last time out, if you're good at a short track, you're probably going to be consistent over the time, and that's not just referring to the fact that he won here as well in December, but of course his one win this season came at Iowa. But there is, again, no playoff, as we talked about earlier. There is no advantage to that. Really, you need points, Zane, and there are going to be 2 drop weeks, so it's still early on. But Jordan came into tonight 10th in the championship standings, 31 back of the like Mitchell Riggs and John Long and some of the other drivers that he's been racing up and around. So, he really needs to be able to close this one out. I know 15 weeks is a lot as the lights go out on top of the pace car, but it is not long enough to be able to throw away good nights. And right now he's having a great one as the pace car's in.
Getting ready to go green. That iRacing Ford Mustang makes that hard left-hand turn, giving the field back to Erickson. With Taylor on his outside, can Taylor keep up with them?
Green flag back in the air, and it is a good jump down low, up through the gears to turn 1. Erickson leads. Clear for second as Taylor will fight for third. Here comes John Long. He clears Holmes to maintain his spot. First fight there for in P5, I should say. 57 cars, but I'm trying to get out. That's Brandon Ward on the outside in P5, 57. There we go. He's side by side with Johns in the 31.
I didn't know what you were saying there for Evan. I thought you were speaking.
That's that Morse code we were talking about earlier. That's the Morse code we were talking about.
Oh, gotcha. But right now, the biggest mover on this pit stops and this green flag run has got to be John Long. He was our pole sitter. He's trying to run down the 42 as everyone else behind him is 2 by 2 by 2, battling it out for position. What we saw earlier on in that first green flag stint, we saw a caution within 2-3 laps, because these guys were battling side by side. But it looks like everyone now is starting to single file out, as Erickson still is our Pied Piper.
He is. He was able to get a very good jump, and this is now a return to what we saw earlier. You can't blame it on any of the lap traffic. You got the faster race car, show it. Because we're inside the final 100 laps in this grandfather clock 400. Taylor second, Long third, Holmes fourth, Johns fifth. Nothing's changed there. And in fact, we are single file all the way back to position 12, where Jake Finch trying to hold off the 06 machine I think that's Mitchell Riggs actually in the 09 car. Oh, no, it is the 06 lap traffic of Eric Hagg. So that's where it is mid-pack. Your race leaders, though, strung out pretty decently.
But take a look here. The 6 right now stuck on that outside, still getting battled by Brandon Ward for that 6th position. Oh, another
slowing it down. And it's in front of the leaders. Luvender sideways in front of them all as they scatter to try to find an escape route. The 37 also up against the wall, and it was contact between those two, Luvender and the number 37 of Bommersbach, as they went off at a turn 1, lap 108. The 37 just missed it on the brakes. He spun, and there was nowhere for the 19 to go.
For the 42 to go, our second place sitter of John Long, right into the side quarter panel of Luvender there, and you got to wonder how much is that going to affect his Ford Mustang racing machine.
Your race leaders were on the scene very quickly, and that 42 is Stephen Taylor. Gets some damage in that. It is going to cost him not only track position, but he's back down pit road. What a change of events. In just a few moments, some lapped cars get into each other. Jordan Erickson strolls on by, and maybe his biggest challenger is limping down to the pit lane. You can see him on the right-hand side of your screen, assuming that's going to be for damage repairs.
It's definitely got to be for damage repairs. He slammed that door not as hard as he could. He was hard on the brakes, but you got to wonder if he flat spotted the tires. Hopefully, he can get a little bit of help on that right rear quarter panel, because that side is still bent in and dented from the other contact in that first stint.
But this will present an opportunity to some of the cars who I'm not going to say weren't the fastest cars as well. I mean, top 5 speed and all, but the way that it sits, John Long now becomes second, Holmes back up to third, and Mike Husby in fourth as ends up +4 after his mistake on the pit lane, so that kind of gets wiped away just a little bit. Will we see one of these drivers be able to challenge Ericsson? Because, again, it was a little bit deceptive that it was such a 2-car race, because, again, that was nearly a 100-lap green flag run, lap traffic into the mix, and all of those different factors. If Long or Holmes get a good restart, can they show that they have speed to dance with Jordan Erickson? I mean, the 88 machine, David Iwano, a very consistent driver. How do you think things have shaken out so far with him seemingly in control even through the chaos?
Well, Jordan's always been really good at Martinsville. I mean, since he's joined the Championship Online Racing teams, he's seems to always run well here, and he's the defending champion of the CORT Trading Paints Cup Series, which was one of 2 Premier Series one season ago. So we were almost looking like we were going to have a repeat of the finish that we had in the CORT Trading Paints Cup Series last August here at Martinsville, where Jordan and Stephen Taylor were battling tooth and nail to the line in a double overtime finish that led to a really, really close finish, one of the second closest in series history, as we were mentioning earlier on in the broadcast. But I think Ericsson, he's been really good, but as we've seen, lap traffic can come into play, and it can definitely get really interesting in a hurry.
And the fast cars from that race are fast tonight, no shocker. We mentioned Ericsson and Taylor, but Patrick Lindsay was a third-placed finisher in that one. Not in this one, but Julian Bador and Jake Finch. I mean, those are drivers that we mentioned a couple of times have speed, and were able to get the results. So it's just a matter of putting the race together and how long these next 86 laps will feel. If you're the race leader, they're going to be taking forever, but if you're somebody who's got speed and on the move, you're going to feel like you got no time at all. Pace cars off and away once more. Green flag back in the air. It's another good start. Watch that 63 of Holmes. He'll go to the inside for second.
Taylor stuck on the outside, nowhere to go. He's going to stack up the field, but still 2 by 2 for Holmes and Long as they come off a 2.
Nose to nose, the 26 car drives it in so much deeper off and into turn 3. Holmes had the advantage, and he's going to get it back off the corner. Still not clear, though, as Long keeps him honest. Side by side for second and third, also for fourth and fifth behind, with Husby trying to stay in that spot. But here comes Brandon Ward on the inside. Trying to get clear, can't do it. Meanwhile, Holmes does maintain P2.
Holmes got around the 26 of Long, but back there, Husby, Ward, Lindsay, Mandor still fighting it out for position.
This off for the restart may allow Ericsson to walk away as your race leaders battle. It is Medor up on the outside as they rip off a corner two. And you can see he's kind of the only one up on the top side. He's got the down of Patrick Lindsay to his bottom lane. Just name dropped him a little bit ago. Finished third in this race from last August. As of course we saw Martinsville in August and then in December for the two of the Premier Series here with the CORT National Series in the top level. And that 9 car on the bottom again can't get off the corners as well as he would like. So both of these cars going to be running not that good, but the 9 machine I feel like has got the better run that time of the 4. I think it's his. So Lindsay around the 22 for 6th. If Medor will go down, finally he does, then it'll transition into a fight behind because James Gouda wanted to jump into the fun.
Gouda wants it, but the problem I have for Medor right now, Julian is probably screaming, just let me know on a clear spot or get me on that bottom groove. I'm dropping back like a rock in the Lakahatchee right now, and we're seeing him still, the 22 and the 86 battling it out. The 86 of Gouda's going to make the pass, but now that's going to open a fight with the 4 car of Black and Medor.
And the big thing as well is, of course, look at that car on the outside. I think he had an opportunity the last time by the start-finish line to just kind of lay off of the gas and actually tuck in line. Instead, Zane, he decided to stay in the battle, stayed on the outside, and therefore Brett Blackwood by on the bottom. Now here comes the 09 Riggs. Oh, and there's contact. Those two are beating and banging. Oh, and he's going to give him some payback. He did not appreciate it, and Riggs gets dumped.
Got dumped big time. I think Medor finally, the patience ran out for him, and he said, you know what, not here, not now, not never. Have a taste of your own medicine.
Tempers boiling over at Martinsville. You'll see the replay as they would off it into turn 1. He had the inside positioning, pushed up just a little bit. You'll see the contact there, and he said, all right, fine. Went right after the quarter panel, off it into the corner, took him out. That is what we expected of Martinsville. It only took 121 laps, but he sent him.
He definitely sent him. But really, you got some really nice cars that were destroyed in that melee that were just victims of circumstance. Jeffrey Miller in the 13. And I think there was also another one I couldn't catch on the replay there. But I just want to call out that 13 Southwest machine. It's the most beautiful looking car we were talking about before the race. On the track. Still just catches my eye. I just feel bad for that 13.
Yeah, the front and the back end, in fact, all of it looks a little bit worse for wear, but it's funny because when I was doing last week's race at Vegas, I said as well, hey, that's a sporty-looking Southwest car, that's my airline of choice, so always fun to see the different paint schemes and sponsors and everything that these drivers can come up with. And I will say, in terms of like social media impact and presence and time put in, I don't know if there's many leagues, if any, on iRacing that have got these good-looking race cars like we do here on Wednesdays.
It's probably some of the best-looking schemes in the iRacing series and in the community. I know I want to pick up the digital phone and start calling some of these drivers like, hey, can I have that scheme for my car? I just got back into iRacing trying to knock the rust off, but I'm going to look pretty while doing it.
Yeah, at least if you don't look good on the speed charts, you can look good on the racetrack, and I think that's a victory in and of itself sometimes. At least if I'm ever driving, certainly.
A good screenshot is worth 1,000 words, right?
There you go. And if it's got a get a spec map on it, you get some chrome, that adds some horsepower, I think.
Oh yeah, it gives you +5 to horsepower, +20 to awesomeness.
Yeah, so exactly. So there's science behind all of the good-looking paint schemes. And listen, I'm not saying, but I'm saying that a lot of the time the best-looking race cars are up at the front. So we may be onto something if that is the case. And you can see all of the good paint schemes here on CORT Vision and Ericsson, Holmes, Long, Husby, Ward. Those are your top 5, but. We still have 19 cars on the lead lap. If this ends up being just the start of the chaos as the lights go on top of the pace car, who knows what's in store when we come by and take 74 to go.
And Ericsson didn't want to see that caution. He was starting to get into his rhythm as we're making this final long stretch down the backstretch. The iRacing Ford Mustang pace car is going to make that hard left-hand turn down pit road, give the field back to Ericsson, that 88. But on his outside is Chad Holmes, who was caught sleeping on that last restart. Let's see if he can keep up with Ericsson when we go green.
He's been so good on the restart so far. He gets to dictate when we go green on the inside, and he does it again. Adios, Jordan Erickson, way gone to turn one. I thought Long may have been able to challenge for second. Unable to do so, though. Holmes gets there, caution behind. It's a parking lot in turn one.
And it may be the start to the long night right here, Evan. I think patience and give and take has gone out the window at this point.
We'd said earlier that we got that long flag run, and that can certainly make things interesting. But the way that it has played out to this point, I don't know. More damaged race cars diving down to the pit lane to try to get fixed up. And Martinsville's a track that cautions breed cautions. I know that's kind of a rule of thumb anywhere, but especially in a race like this. You get one yellow, and if you're, not the race car driver, you're thinking, all right, well, they just wrecked, so they're probably going to take it easier to get out of it. But as car driver, if someone hits you and you're thinking, all right, well, if you're going to race me that way, I'll race you that way. And you're also thinking, well, we're pacing. I got less laps to do it. I'm going to be more aggressive. A lot of the time has the adverse effect of what you would think, and that's how, not just here at Martinsville, not just, in any series or any combination of drivers, but just in racing in general, if you get a yellow in the second half, it could mean that it could be an interesting end.
Would be an interesting end, but what's going to make it even interesting on this restart here, Evan, they didn't get a full 2 laps. They got a corner into that restart. That means they're going to go single file restarts this time when they go green, which means now there's no second guessing. You have to be on it. You have to be right on Erickson's bumper if you're Holmes, and even if you're Long. There's no worries about trying to cut that driver off behind you. You have to be with them if you're going to make a pass.
And the way that this looks now for Erickson is, he's been good on the restarts. In fact, has, been pretty perfect on the restarts. But, can you stay perfect? Are you going to nail 10 out of 10, 20 out of 20? I mean, the more restarts you get, the more you're just opening up the door for somebody to maybe not even beat you straight up, but just to get lucky. If they just guess it correct once and somebody gets your inside off into turn one and they nudge you up the hill. I mean, that's it. You get up and into the dirty stuff in turn one on a restart, you could be back in 12th. And at that point, who knows if you ever get back to it. So if I'm on the wheel of the 88, I'm stressing.
Yeah, you're hoping his knees aren't weak, his palms aren't sweaty, didn't have any of his mom's spaghetti for Erickson, because you're absolutely right. Last night in the MH Design Series at Oxford Plains, we saw a lot of drivers starting to time those restarts on those leaders to make it a 2-wide, battle for the lead, moving guys up a little bit on the racetrack, because that's a single track group, just like here at Martinsville. So you got to wonder, is Holmes going to figure it out? Is he him laying back here a little bit? Maybe he's going to tighten that gap up. But he's got to get the shot going into one if he wants to get around that 88.
A couple more drivers going to see their nights come to an end. We mentioned Matt Wood and Devontae Dotson didn't get off to a great start. Looks like Dunn, Hag, and maybe a handful of other drivers or so go behind the wall, but at least some more drivers not going to make it the distance in this grandfather clock 400. Of course, if you're tuning in a little bit late with us for this race of the CORT National Series, David Danboys, a lot more action as well coming up next week as the lights going on the pace car.
Yeah, real quick, next week we're back in action, 3rd week of Court Vision as we help you get through all of this coronavirus stuff going on right now. Monday, Supercars of Monza, 9 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, Tour Modifieds, Southern National Motorsports Park. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern. Right back here, Court National Series at Road America. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern as well.
And it made you blow through that one as we get set to go racing. The moral of the story, tune in on Court Vision every night of the week, Monday, Wednesday. We got you covered. The pace car is off and away. Erickson this time's going to have to go high. There's a good restart. We're back underway, 133 laps down.
Erickson got a good jump that time, giving a little bit of space, about a car length between him and Holmes as they come off a 2. The field stacking up back behind him, behind Long. But, Evan, I want to point out real quick, Steven Taylor, the 42 car who got caught in that early lap incident, drove his way back up into the top 10, sitting 9th right now as we went green.
He's been one of the best cars all night long. Drove his way up through the field once from P5 to get to the race lead. Can he do it again this time from further back in 9th position? Erickson pulls the distance at a turn 2. Here comes the 63 of Holmes. He was under fire by Long, but Long's got the 6 car, a Husby, on his bumper. So they're all kind of beating and banging. Look at all the marbles and dirt and grime on the inside and on the outside as these drivers try to walk that little bit of a groove on track here as your race leader pulls away in front. Looks like the fighting's going to be inside the top 5, top 10. Right now, though, I think single file through.
The White Mamba of Mike Husby in that 6 machine getting worked on by Brandon Ward in the 57, but Husby trying to run down the 26 along in the Dunkin' Donuts. But this battle for the top 4 or third here is really starting to heat up as Erickson is just starting to cruise away, drive away, and be as steady as possible as he's slowly inching that gap wider between him and the 63 of Holmes.
And that's all you can hope for, is just get a little bit every single time around. And if you're Holmes, you have to work here on not getting distracted by Long behind you. Not that the 26 isn't a real threat, but if you're too busy looking in the mirror, then you're going to be losing, maybe just thousands at a time. But you need to focus on the race leader and do everything you can to either, depending on what you want to do, A, do exactly what Jordan Erickson is doing, or B, if you can't catch him because you're doing what he's doing, try to search for a little bit extra. But you have to have your focus solely divided on that top car. When you start looking in the mirror and try to deviate your line to protect, that is only going to allow the 88 to check out as Holmes catches the fence a little bit there at a 4, using every inch of the racetrack and then some.
A little bit of a tank slapper for Holmes, but Erickson right now, and you talked about a monkey see, monkey do. If Holmes does exactly what Erickson's going to do, he's just going to maintain pace with him. He's not going to close the gap, as we see Long now in that 60 or 26 machine start to close the gap again on Holmes, and Holmes almost slapping the wall again coming off a 4, letting Long run right up to him, bringing Husby with him.
And Long is certainly going to be pushing it here because he's got, you mentioned Husby, you got Ward, Patrick Lindsay, but all these drivers kind of bumper to bumper here as Long looks to the inside. He flashed the nose in turn 3, opting not to make the move, though. That would have been a very spirited dive if he decided to follow through with it, but he stays in line for the moment, and I think Holmes is really going to have his hands full here. Here's a 26 again, looking to the bottom. Does he have room? Holmes leaves it open, but still doesn't want to drive it in too hard. Waits for a moment, but Holmes right now, P2, letting Erickson get away.
Yes, Holmes right now has got a lot of pressure from the 26 as Erickson's getting smaller and smaller in his windshield. But I think Long at this moment is giving him the old IMSA treatment. Just saying, blinky, blinky, hey, I'm still here. I want to make this pass. If you can, just shift out of the racing groove. Let me come by. But he's getting a lot of pressure from the White Mamba of Mike Husby in that 6 car right now. And just Long has got to get around the 63 if he wants to catch Erickson, because if Erickson's got this much real estate, he's just going to stretch his legs even further.
I think after Sunday's Pro Invitational, I think it was Denny Hamlin who photoshopped the picture of Kyle Busch with a hand gesture out the window. Maybe that's what John Long would wish he had right now. Hey, get out of the way, move, as Holmes is on the outside. Oh, they're going to touch. Long gets into him. He slaps the inside wall. No yellow because nobody goes around, but John Long torn up as he falls to P5.
Great hands by John Long, though, to keep that thing going straight, not to loop it around. But right now, Holmes is getting pressure from the 6. The 6 is getting Husby, and the 57 of Ward is putting pressure on Husby.
He is going to try to kind of gang up on him here, and now we'll see if this is going to be Ward's opportunity. Holmes now kind of de facto takes over second place, but he's a second and a half behind the race leader. Does he have speed to challenge Erickson for a race win in this one? Admittedly, this is kind of the biggest race lead we've seen all night long, a combination of factors, but that is twice now that the car in second position behind Erickson has gotten into an incident, and that's how Chad Holmes, third on deck per se, ends up right now in second.
Hey, if you're Erickson right now, you're like Emperor Palpatine. Yes, fight, do my bidding. Because the more these drivers fight for second on back, that's going to let him stretch that lead out even more, as we're watching Husby try to work on the 63 of Holmes. My question to you, Evan, if you're the 26 of Long and you get to that 63, do you return the favor, or you just try to get around and clean?
We've seen drivers not be shy to return the favor this evening, and listen, I think it depends on how annoyed the 26 is, not with the actual contact, but with him holding it up earlier. I think if he just caught up to him and got that little bit of contact, I don't know if he'd be as mad, but because I think he feels like that he was stuck behind him, If John Long could get to him, I think he's going to deliver a message. And admittedly, when he hit the inside wall, that driver's side doesn't look all that bad. I thought he fell to P5, and that was going to be it. He needed water wings stop from drowning him. He was going to go way back. He's hanging tough in P5, and there's a fight for second. Husby to the quarter panel. Holmes unable to get all the way to the inside. Now he'll look to the outside in turn 4, doing anything he can to try to get the spot.
I think Husby's going to send a message here real quick to the 63 of Holmes. There's been a few times he's been to that bumper. He's almost gotten around him, and Husby has just gotten the nose almost chopped off. There's only so much give and take you can have on the racetrack before you're Husby, and you just give a bumper and just send a guy around.
There's more contact to lean it on about a turn number 4. The last time by, it was 50 laps to go from Martinsville. We mentioned that when this race strings out green, it can be done in the blink of an eye. If we were to run these 50 laps out to the end of the race, you're only looking at about 16, 17 minutes of race time if it goes uninterrupted. Ericsson continues to check out. He's your race leader. You see him at the top of the pylon on the left. He's way out in front. We are watching the fight for second on the back, and I just wanted to clarify that, Zane, because if someone's just tuning in and they see this, they really don't see a car in front of Holmes. They could think this is the fight for the race lead. This for second, third, and fourth.
Ericsson's got his headphones on right now, listening to some great music. USB plugged himself into his computer, letting it on auto drive because he has walked away from this field as the battle for second is starting to heat up. Husby looking to the inside of the 63 of Holmes, finally getting around him. That's going to open the door for the 57 of Ward, and that's going to move Holmes all the way back to fourth.
It was a real deep drive in by the 6 to get to the inside, and one. Holmes still not stable as he really wiggled off the corner. There's Long. Oh, the 9 gets hit. That's Lindsay. Tacked by Gouda. All of this going on the door of the 63 car. So Chad Holmes is going to go from, I would say, comfortably in second to just trying to stay top 5. If that, Lindsay takes 5th from him, and there is no opening on the inside in sight because, as I mentioned, James Gouda next on deck there. Then that 42 is Stephen Taylor and a whole host of cars behind, but it looks like Holmes does find an opening. 9 car, no, look at the 86. He forces the issue. Oh, and the 9 gets tagged. Lindsay is going to go around. Holmes is involved, and it is a big mess in turn 4.
Hey, and I hate to be the one to say it, but karmic retribution just came back to Holmes there after the situation that he gave to Long in the 26. You hate to see it, but you know who does like to see it is that Dunkin' Donuts machine because he didn't have to do the dirty work.
And Ericsson also doesn't like to see it, but yeah, the 63 car got in line, and it was a aggressive move by Gouda to say, no, I wanted to be on the bottom. He got on the curb, was leaning on him on the quarter panel. The 9 got tagged, and it was a big mess, and you're exactly right. The 42 car didn't have to do anything. He just drove right on by and was able to watch it and I think chuckle in the rearview mirror. Now, though, a yellow inside of 50 to go, and Ericsson is going to come back down pit road. We have not seen him in since that yellow, basically right at the halfway point. Thought that, again, based on the fuel, he would be able to go the distance, so maybe he would opt not to, but he wants tires for the final 40, so he'll give up track position to bring it in.
And monkey see, monkey do. Ericsson comes down, is going to bring the whole field with him. Everyone coming down, probably for 4 fresh tires, and maybe a little bit of Sunoco race fuel just to get him through the end of this race here. But the biggest mover in that stint, man, Stephen Taylor in the 42, now putting himself in 6th, right outside the top 5. As long as he has a good pit stop, he's got a shot to win this race.
He has been really good for the cars on the pit lane. Nobody really going too crazy. 4 tires for Ericsson. He's first off. Drag race to the line. Husby stays second. Ward third. We do see John Long jump up. He'll go 4th. Taylor 5th. It looks like Jake Finch in the 8 car has opted not to come down pit road. He'll stay out, become our de facto race leader. Both he and Jeffrey Miller have not been in for service, and they now go 1-2.
It's action's about to heat up. We got, about 39 laps left in this race here, Evan. Ericsson has been a dominant car, but those cars that were strong in the beginning of half of the race now have 4 fresh tires right there behind him. Husby, who's been that slow stalker, like Sting, sticking out outside your window saying every step you make, every move you take, he's watching you. He's going to be starting out with right there with Ericsson.
Big Finch has had some speed in that car. In fact, it was the top 5 finisher in the race here in August, so it's not that crazy for him to stay out. As you can see, Finch and a lot of contact under the yellow there between he and Miller in that noted Southwest Chevy. There's, or at least what's left of the Southwest Chevy. Even Finch's bumper's torn up. I don't think this is just a move to be concerned of based on tires. I'd be concerned about how fast those race cars are regardless after it looks like they've been through the ringer.
They've been through the ringer and then some. I feel bad for that beautiful Southwest Chevy, but the question you have to start to ask yourself is Ericsson and Husby starting behind them. How much patience do you have to let these slow cars and these damaged cars race in front of you?
Looks like that Ericsson is going to end up third because Finch and Miller are not balking. They are going to stay out, and they will be the front row. So here we go. Finch, Miller, row 1. Ericsson, Husby on row 2 and 3rd and 4th. And Brandon Ward in 5th. Again, fresh tires for 3rd on back. But it is the 8 car on the outside. And Jake Finch, he's in control at a turn 4. Green flag in the air. And Miller's got nothing. It looks like Ericsson's going to lose a spot as Husby goes to the race lead. 3 wide behind. A whole lot of contact. Still, we stay green. And somehow it's Husby, the race leader.
And Ericsson got a block done by the 13th there. Had to lock him up a little bit going into 1. Now he's working on Finch in the 8 as Husby's starting to drive away.
He is checking out, and again, Ericsson, I mentioned that how many of these restarts could he be good on, and that was at no fault of his own. The control car took the top, the 13 was bad on the inside. Ericsson even went to the outside to pass him before the start-finish line and still lost a ton of time. Husby by just, I think, luck of the draw, being there on the outside of row 2 and making the move. Now is your race leader by 7/10 of a second. Jordan Ericsson is in a position that he has not been in quite some time, and that is chasing down the race leader. He is 7/10 of a second behind this time through with 35 laps to go.
He hasn't been looking at the rear end of a lead lap car since about lap 20, lap 25 of this race. Here we are at lap 166 of 200, and now he's trying to run down Mike Husby to put himself back in that position of first.
Closes in that time. He was better at 26.77 for Husby, a 20.521 for Ericsson. This time by a 5:10 for Ericsson, still a 1/10 of a second better. So Jordan Ericsson is the best car on track. If he gets all 33 laps out of this thing, I think there's no doubt that he's going to be all over Husby. He'll probably be there within 3 laps as that HPP machine is all over the bumper now to 1.5 car lengths. Now just 1 off as they come into turn 2.
Hey, getting to Husby's one thing, getting around him is a completely different subject matter, and if he can't find a spot to make the pass, he's going to be stuck here, and then we might have to see a situation of a little bit of a bump and run, a little bit of an intimidation factor, as old Earnhardt used to say at Bristol with Terry Labonte. You might just have to rattle his cage some.
We've seen a bit of that tonight, but we have not seen it really mano-a-mano in a battle for the race lead. And if Ericsson takes any time, Ward in 3rd would be the driver looking to pick up the pieces. But these top 2 by far and large the best cars on track. Again, I think Jordan Ericsson, this is his race to lose. He'll look to the inside on Husby. The 6 car is not going to block. He'll open up the bottom. Here we go for the race lead at Martinsville. Leaning on each other at a 2. They were so close there. Ericsson, he's got the preferred spot, but he locked it up. Husby doing a good job up top, but Ericsson again contact.
And Husby can't quite get the power down that outside. Now Ericsson's going to move around. Husby again battling hard on the outside of 2. They're going to drag race again down the backstretch, Evan.
The 88 machine so close to being cleared. Mike Husby, maybe with one last-ditched effort. They've touched it about every single quarter, but there it is. Back to the top at 29 to go. Jordan Ericsson. It took a little bit of finesse, but he's in front. Husby's not done. He went for the shot out of turn 2, and Ericsson scrambles away.
Ericsson got on his bike and rode as fast as he could to get away from that 6. That was a close bumper shot. But while these 2 have been battling up front, that's letting Brandon Ward in the 57 slowly start to reel these 2 in. Can't quite do it in the same speed that Ericsson did on Husby. But now Husby's starting to stretch that lead out. Or not Husby, Ericsson, sorry.
Yeah, Ericsson's running away. He had gotten out to about a second and a half and change, as we mentioned before this yellow. Kind of shuffled everything up. I thought that maybe it would have been a gamble by him to decide to come down to the pit lane, but the almost unanimous decision was that fresh tires were good. Again, only those 2 cars stayed out, and well, that 13 mission to Jeffrey Miller, who didn't have the good roll, it was the big reason why Ericsson lost that lead anyways, is 19th already, the last car in the lead lap. That staying out strategy did not work well for him. A little bit of lap traffic. The 11 car is going to get worked on around. That is Roger Espinosa, 4 laps down and now 5 down, I think, in the number 24 position. But Ericsson, I don't think he's concerned about Husby. Listen, that 6 car is fast, but it's not Jordan Ericsson fast. The 88 machine has been on a rail tonight, has had some circumstances go his way as well. There's been challengers, the likes of Steven Taylor, John Long. Those are kind of the fastest cars as well in the first half, but after encountering some problems, they've fallen to P5 and 6 and have not been able to get back up on the 88 car, who right now is enjoying a half a second lead.
And Ericsson is really showing right now in that 88 machine why he's the defending race winner. Last season won this race. Here he is again up front with Husby in tow, and the 57 of Ward trying to run down Husby in second.
And of course for Ward, he was further behind, so not only is Ward actually catching Husby, but he's been catching Jordan Ericsson as well. They were almost identical lap times for the first and third placed cars the last time by, and this time through, that interval does trickle down. So while Ward catches in on Husby, keep in mind that Husby really isn't losing time to Ericsson. So that 57 car, I don't want to jinx it, but he may be the fastest car on track. 1.2 seconds back with 22 to go. Is it possible?
Oh, it's hard to say right now. Ericsson has been the cream of the crop, and as Macho Man Randy Savage said, the cream of the crop rises to the top. But I really want to point out 2 things. I want to give a shout out to James Gutta. Started 27, sitting 5th right now, right behind Steven Taylor, who's drove himself all the way back up to 4th place after having that early race incident with Ludenberg.
You can see the 25 cars getting up and out of the way, so your race leaders dealing with lap traffic. Slicing to the bottom is going to be Caden Bommersbach, so he'll get out of the way as well as that 6 of Husby messed up a little bit that time into 3, getting around the traffic, cost him some time, and in fact, the traffic's going to hold up Brandon Ward more than anybody else. The third-placed car lost to 0.2 of a second that time by. So, I mean, he was already needing at least a half a tenth every single time around to be able to get up there. So to add 0.2 is basically taking 4 more laps out of it. This time by, going to be 19 laps to go. It is crunch time. It's the home stretch from Martinsville. Ericsson, Husby, and Ward, 1, 2, and 3. Is the 88 car going to be able to stroll, at least not in general, because he's got traffic in front.
And he's got the biggest traffic right now, the moving roadblock, and no disrespect meant in it, but Tucker in that 55 was one of the hardest cars to pass earlier in this race. Still, once again, giving Ericsson the business, and Ericsson just can't find a lane to get around him.
He actually blocked him that time on the front straightaway as the 13 got up and out of the way. It looked like Ericsson was thinking about 3 wide, and the 55 said no, shut the door on him. So he had to wait one more time around. It has brought Husby in, who just catches the traffic at a bad spot, and again, he can't really get off of the corner. No fault to the 55 machine. So Ericsson, who closed in a little bit, now gets holed up a bit. Brandon Ward benefited. He's now within a second of the race leader. So we can see how, unconventional and kind of unpredictable, I think is the word I'm looking for, the lap traffic is. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to getting around lapped cars. And Ericsson still with 15 laps to go. I'm looking up the road a little bit. There is a lot of space, but if he should catch the next bit of lap traffic, it is a ton of it.
Yeah, and everyone right now with this late in the run, this late in the race, is racing for their own positions in their own battles. So they don't want to give up a spot, even if it's a lead lap car or not, because that's only going to mean that they're going down another lap. They have more traffic and ground to make up. As Husby was trying to close that gap on Ericsson, now just falling back to 2 car lengths, sitting there in second. I don't know, Evan, if he's got enough time to make a run unless Ericsson catches that lap traffic before the white flag.
And it looks like Ericsson is about 4 seconds behind that big string of cars, and they are only running about 0.4 of a second off of him. So, at this current interval, if he's going to catch them, it would be inside of 5 to go. It's not going to matter. Caution flag late at Martinsville. Somebody's got into it.
Oh, that's going to change everything right here, right now. Oh, goodness. This is not what Jordan Erickson wanted to see, Evan, at all. A caution flag with under 15 to go. Husby's going to be on his outside. And you have Ward behind him. And then our early race leader, Steven Taylor, sitting behind Erickson, or sitting outside of Husby. This just changed the entire outcome of your race.
And the contact was at a battle for 8th and 9th between Brett Black and Chad Holmes. They got into each other coming out of turn number 4 on lap 186. You can see the back end of it there with the 4 car turned around to the wall. 63 car went to the inside and he hit him. I'm not sure it needs a more descriptive definition than that.
Holmes is not making any friends this race. He's probably off a lot of people's Christmas card lists by the end of the night.
So I'm curious if the 4 car is going to be looking for some payback later on in this one. I know that Jordan Erickson does not appreciate that. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the opportunity lost. The fact that you do not know. Jordan Erickson, I think, may have liked to run those final 10 laps out to the end, David, so he could be upset about this yellow, but if he had caught the lap traffic and that had cost him the race, this could end up being what wins him the race. Again, there's no real way to know it. All we know is the 88's going to be in control for at least one more restart, and he's been pretty good on those tonight, all with the exception of the last one.
Yeah, and the one good thing that's going for him here on this one is that, with it being within 10 laps to go, and with it being a long green flag run in between that, this is going to be a double file restart. So this actually helps Mike a little bit more, Husby. But the guy that you got to watch for him, we were talking about his lap times there on that last green flag run, was Brandon Ward. He reeled in, or he was within striking distance of those two in the front in the 88 and the 6. So it could very well go either way, and who knows how these restarts go at Martinsville too. It's pretty easy to go bowling here.
Yeah, we've seen that many times over the years, and maybe some glimpses of that. But inside of 10 to go, Zane, with Erickson up front, is somebody going to be able to get him, or does the 88 car tough this one out and hang on?
So here's the thing. Last night in the EMH Design Series, Husby was starting second on the outside a lot of times. Late in that race, he had figured out the timing of the restarts of Brett Black. And I think here he could do it with Erickson in that 88. He's going to be starting on the outside, but he's got to get a hell of a jump to clear him and get in front of him going into 1 and off of 2. But you also got to worry about Taylor in that 42 sitting right behind Husby. He was a dominant car at the start of the race. He's got a little bit of damage on that 42 machine, but don't count him out.
This time by, it is going to be 8 laps to go from Martinsville. Can't promise, but it could be the final restart of the Grandfather Clock 400. The pace car off and in. Jordan Erickson, all in all, the best car all night, probably deserves to win the Grandfather Clock, but that's not always how short track racing plays out. Here we go as the pace car is off and away. Erickson side by side, and there's the jump. Husby's right with him, side by side to turn 1.
Oh, and he rubs him a little bit with Erickson. That's going to open the door for the 57 of Ward. We got a 3-car battle for the lead as we come off of 2.
And Erickson got real lucky there. He pushed up into Husby. It almost opened up the door for Ward. That could have been bad. Oh, the 42 gets tagged. Taylor spins it at turn 4. He's on the curb. Johns is involved. Caution.
Oh, that is not what you want to see if you're Jordan Erickson. You cleared the calamity. You got around Husby. You beat him to the punch. And then as soon as you hit the start-finish line, another caution comes out. But the biggest victim and one of the hardest drivers of this race was that 42 machine. He worked his tail off to get back up into the top 5, to put himself in striking distance for a win. And now Steven Taylor, he's going to have a hard time tonight.
But it was a bit of a harmless mistake, too. James Good was just a little bit shy on entry to the quarter, got the curb, and that is what pushed up and tagged the Bojangles 42 of Steven Taylor, who then got tagged a couple more times just for good measure. as about, I think, 3-4 cars or so actually pick up some significant damage in that one. And, Ericsson had just gotten out of the weeds. Instead, now he's right back into the thick of things. That race in Vegas saw some late race restarts last week. If you were tuned in with us on Court Vision for the inaugural Hangover 400, the showdown at sunrise, as Johnny Eckert took home the checkered flag in that one for his first of the season. Looks like Jordan Erickson, if he looks for his second of the year, he's going to have to endure a similar set of circumstances as this one's going to be coming down right to the wire.
But take a look, though, Evan. It's going to be a single file restart. They didn't go long enough to get a double file restart here, so Ericsson's going to have the advantage. But someone who's been fast this whole last stint of the race, Brandon Ward starting right behind him. If he can time that restart with the 88, he might have a shot to battle this Jordan Erickson to go out on victory lane.
And you never know if there's going to be chaos, where it comes from. There's no guarantee that it's, back half of the top 10 or so. What if it's Erickson? I mean, you're looking at Ward, Husby, Long, Holmes. If I'm anybody top 5, top 10, I'm thinking, listen, I've got a good shot, not maybe to win this race outright, but to get a really good result out of it, depending on if they do want to go bowling, and if we're doing Canadian or American bowling, and that would dictate how many pins are down at the end of the lane and how many cars we wreck when we get down and into the quarter. We'll see if the lights go out on top of the pace car this time by. It would be a 2-lap to go shootout inside of regulation. We'll find out as the pace car cycles forward.
And Evan, while we're waiting to see if the lights go off, who would you want to be on this restart? Do you want to be the 6 of Husby, the 57 of Ward, or the 26 of Long? Oh, we'll be double file.
Yeah, they're going to double up for this one. And listen, I think it's hard to choose any position but the race lead of Erickson. But, the Chrome Horn can certainly come into play from behind as David, we're going 2x2.
Yeah, real quick, the rule is within 10 laps to go, it is a double file restart regardless if we didn't get 2 green flag laps. So that's why we're double file here.
So there you go, inside of the final 10, and this could be for the final time. Pace car off and away. Jordan Erickson's got all the speed, but he's got the target on his back. Green flag in the air, and a huge spin for Husby. He can't get the power down. Ward's into second, 2 laps to go.
2 laps to go, and now Erickson's pulling away, but Husby recovered quickly on the bumper of Ward as we come down the backstretch. Is he going to dive bomb it into 3? He's going to keep it single file, but stuck on that outside is going to be John Long now getting worked by Holmes.
And there's a lot of funny behind. Long is way sideways up and the outside. That was Holmes. They fight for 4th and 5th, side by side for 6, 7 as well. But here is Erickson. Final time down the back straightaway. Ward is 2 car lengths off. He's going to drive it in, but it is not close enough for the shunt. And Jordan Erickson takes home the win. He gets it done at Martinsville as he drives by a pileup.
Like a parking lot on the front stretch there for Erickson. Good thing he saw coming off of 4.
We had gotten to the white flag, so this race was official, and Erickson hangs on, and there's a little bit of a love tap from Ward to post-race. I'll be honest, I know that Brandon Ward was 2 car lengths off, but that ain't never stopped people in Martinsville before. I think Brandon Ward could have made it ugly in turn 3, opted not to. And like we said at the very top, with the way that this series is, do you risk wrecking yourself to get the win when we're talking about a points championship and no playoffs? I think Ward decided it wasn't worth it. He took P2, and Jordan Erickson hangs on and wins tonight from the paperclip.
It's so early in the season, you got to go for all the points you can at this moment.
Celebrating with the 97 on the front straightaway. Let's take a look top to bottom at the race results tonight from Martinsville. Erickson gets the win atop of Brandon Ward, who finishes in second position. Mike Husby third, and we'll do our very best to chat with some of those top guys in just a moment. Chad Holmes comes home exactly where he started in 4th with Julian Bador P5, and a long night for John Long, who finishes in 6th position. Robert Hill Jr. kind of sneaking in late, ends up in 7th spot. How about this? James Gouda from 27th to P8. Jeff Gross from 33rd to 9th. And it will be capped off. Mitchell Riggs rounds out the top 10.
Tony Johns is going to finish 11th. Patrick Lindsay with a strong drive is going to finish 12th. Aaron Bean is going to come in home 13th. Brett Black, last night's winner, going to finish 14th, though, here tonight at Martinsville. Matt Harrington is going to finish 15th. John Wilco is going to be 16th. Alex Ripstein is going to be 17th. Jake Finch, he's going to finish 18th after starting 8th. Jeffrey Miller is going to finish 19th. And Mr. Ludenberg, Steven, in the 19 car, is going to finish 20th.
And this is where you kind of get into the weeds, the cars that have had a rough go. Steven Taylor, great car, but doesn't get the result as 21st. Dave is Warren. You got Caton Bommersbach and Roger Espinosa, Tyler Tucker through 23rd, with Anthony Hyatt in 24th position, and Philip Kirk 27th. Everybody else, I think, on the hook. It'll include Steve Boyland in 28th with Johnny Parham 29th, Eric Hagg 30th, Mason Dunn, DeMonte Dotson, and Matt Wood through the field. 33rd position. We'll talk the bottom at your Court Vision full race results. It was Jordan Erickson in victory lane tonight from Martinsville, and I believe going to try to chat now with the driver of that 88 machine. He, Brandon Ward, by Cosby, top finishers. Always fun saying to post-race to kind of get the insights on what we saw from up top, but also what they felt from behind the wheel.
Yes.
And I think we do now have the third place finisher, David Danboy, back on the bike as we've been making you push the buttons and chat with us now and then, but you're caught up with our third place finisher.
Yeah, and that's White Mamba Mike Husby with a third place finish. Mike, a really good run here tonight. You kind of almost had a shot at winning this thing before Erickson was able to get by you there late. Why don't you take us through your night?
Well, honest to goodness, that was one of the toughest Martinsville races I've ever run. Actually, there was so much going on that entire race. You really had to manage your tires. I was shifting all night, so it was really tough to keep an eye on everything that was going on. And at the end, I got a really good restart on that one with Jake in the lead there. I cut and sliced through to take the lead, and then I tried to pull away, but I just couldn't. Just didn't have enough of an edge over Erickson, and then on that one restart, I had a really good shot at it, but I just obviously wasn't enough to get by Erickson at the end there.
You come into this race running in the top 10 in points and surviving with a really good third place finish here at Martinsville. Is this one of the big wild cards on the schedule this season for you?
Historically, this track has been really good for me, so I was hoping that the trends would continue, which they did, and to come away with a good top 5 finish here, it was definitely a very good day in the point standings.
And anybody you want to give a quick shout out to here as you leave with this third place finish here at Martinsville?
I just want to thank the guys again from work coming to watch this race again, and everybody else for watching tonight, as well as you guys for putting this on with Court Vision.
Alrighty, that's Mike Husby, your third place finisher. Don't believe we have second place, but I believe Evan has caught up with Jordan Erickson now, who is our winner here tonight here at Martinsville.
It'll be the second time this season in the Court National Series that Jordan Erickson's in victory lane on a Wednesday night. He wins tonight's Grandfather Clock 400. Jordan, congratulations on the win, and just kind of talk us through this one, because early in the race had a couple of other drivers that were taking shots at you and looked like had speed that could challenge, but as this race went on, bad luck struck here and there, and it seemed like through all of the ups and downs that 88 was persistent throughout all and able to end up in victory lane.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Just the early part of the race there, that long run, I was a little surprised and really happy we got that long run. That's good for the league as a whole to get a good long run, especially at Martinsville like that. I think I just overcooked the right rear a little bit, and that let Steven get back to me. But yeah, iRacing's so weird with throwing the cautions that there were just two cars sitting in the middle of the track, and dip and dive the right and wrong way, and I fortunately got through, and I think a few other guys did not, so that kind of helped the cause a little bit, so to speak. Other than that, I think for that little middle part of the race, just kind of cruise, tried to fix my tire wear issues from the beginning of the race, just not run as hard, and end with those restarts kind of played into my hand a little bit. It was a little unfortunate, got stuck behind. A couple guys stayed out there and took a little minute to get back to the lead, but all in all, it was a solid race for Court and a solid race for me.
Yeah, we talked about, of course, history here at Martinsville and the fact that you just won this race back in August. So obviously a big fan of this track in particular, but also just seems like the shorter tracks in the wheelhouse for that 88 car, of course, getting that win a little bit earlier this year from the Iowa Speedway. What is it about these smaller tracks where I think a little bit more is put into the driver's hand than some of the bigger ones where you're able to find success?
I think just the tracks where you have to brake a lot. Phoenix, Martinsville, Iowa, those kind of tracks really play into my hand. I feel like I'm fairly good under braking. Not necessarily braking really deep like some guys do, but just, rolling the center and doing that kind of thing. So especially at like last week at Iowa or a couple weeks ago at Iowa, saving tires and, here a little bit saving tires as well.
Of course, a big change for the championship this year is there is no playoffs, and you came into tonight at 10th in the championship. There are drop weeks, so it is not sound the alarm time, but of course, to get 2 race wins now, winning 2 of the last 3, I know certainly has to kind of give you a bump up. How do you feel after 5 of 15 weeks, and what's the outlook as we go road course racing next week from Road America?
Well, it's Road America, so I'll probably end up in the gravel somewhere and in a tire wall, so I'm a little disappointed. I essentially used up both my drop weeks for the first 2 races. But I don't know. Road course racing, especially at a road course like that, is not necessarily my strong suit. So the rest of the season will be good. I just got to get through the road course and see where we shake out points.
We'll let you get out of here and toast to a second win of the year. Before we do, Jordan, anybody want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to thank HPPsimulations.com and Mark. He's been a big supporter of my sim racing for the last 3-4 years. Got to thank Jim, Brandon, Anthony, Brett, Jeff, and Tyler for all the help during the race and just being there, being able to bounce ideas off of and stuff in the middle of the race. So appreciate what you guys do, and thanks to Dave and you and Zane for broadcasting it.
It certainly came all together tonight, and you guys made it easy for us up here. I know you would have preferred for it to go green and be nice and easy, but the chaos made it easy for us up top. Jordan, we really do appreciate the time chatting with us again. Congrats on the win, and we'll see how the rest of the year plays out.
Thanks, guys.
Race winner tonight for the virtual Martinsville Speedway and the Grandfather Clock 400 is Zane. We're now 5 weeks in to the CORT National Series, and you can kind of hear the difference there for Ericsson. He's the 2-time race winner. He is now one of only 2-time race winners, but the other guy in Mitchell Riggs is sitting pretty up top, and Ericsson's digging out of a hole from 2 bad weeks. So a lot could happen in 5, and there's still 10 to come.
Definitely, a lot can happen this season, especially like you heard Ericsson talk about Road America next week. He's putting money that he's going to end up in the gravel and the tire wall, but he's also got a bunch of other drivers who have the same circumstance happen to him. But tonight was a good showing for him. He needed this win to put himself up in that battle for points. No playoffs like you talked about with Ericsson and during the broadcast, and it's all about consistency. You got to be consistent to win a championship here this season, and right now he's doing it the best.
And as we leave the virtual paperclip, Mr. Danboys, I'll pass the microphone back off to you to bring us home and remind everybody, of course, all of the action that's going to be coming up next week on a Court Vision. Always fun to be a part of these broadcasts. I'm sure Zane agrees. And Zane, thanks for hopping up and hanging out this week. But if you've been having fun the last 2 weeks, plenty more action still to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, I got some stats from Court_stats on Twitter. Give it a follow if you want some good number crunching from the Championship Online Racing teams. This was the 3rd Martinsville win in a row for Jordan Ericsson. He ties Steven Taylor, who was his main rival for most of the night tonight, for most wins at the track and most consecutive wins at a track as well. Ericsson is now tied for 6th most wins in series history because this was his 11th victory. So great stats. That's awesome. That's a member-driven service for the Championship Online Racing teams, which really shows you how awesome everybody helps out with the Championship Online Racing teams. Quickly, next week, you see it on your screen right there, the big board. Monday, Supercars, they're at Monza. There's no chicanes at Monza for this one. 9 p.m. Eastern, I'll have Chris Burke on the call with me for that one. Tuesday, Modifieds, they're at Southern National Motorsports Park. Nice, kind of like a mini, slightly flatter Bristol. Really underrated short track on the service. Tour Mods, 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, as you heard, We're going left and right turn racing. We're going that fancy European racing. CNS at Road America next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Guys, I want to say again, thank you so much for coming out and helping out. I really needed a third voice here because trying to keep up with you, Evan, last week was a nightmare and a half because I was trying to fix our stream issues, and I'm happy to say we had no issues tonight. Everything turned out great. I'm very proud of that. That's awesome. And thank you again, Zane, for popping in and making the transition back over to iRacing. That was kind of unexpected, but it was nice to be able to do that and kind of a throwback for us. So I appreciate that.
I didn't expect that, my second night back to calling iRacing, the NASCAR Heat world and the iRacing esports world would make, collide and join forces to call a race here for CORT. But my first question to you, my first question for you, Dan Boys, is who do I invoice all these Martinsville hot dogs to? Is it you or is it CORT?
You're going to need to contact Dallas Houston Enterprises. They are operated out of Laredo, Texas, and you will need to get a hold of them. They are located at 123 Any Street in anywhere USA. But no, I appreciate you guys coming in, and it's been a blast, and hopefully we can do it again.
And I just want to say congratulations to you once again for today. You got a very special email from Twitch for CORT Vision, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I guess we're like an affiliate now for CORT Vision on Twitch.
Oh, big time.
I guess. I mean, we weren't trying to do this, but I guess we're kind of inadvertently creating a broadcast company. Who knew it would happen? But here we are. And again, thank you everybody for your continued support. And again, like I've said all this week and all last week, my goal is to keep making broadcasts Monday through Wednesday. It could even not be a CORT series. I will be broadcasting races Monday through Wednesday until we actually have real race cars on track. And that might be a while, but I'm going to do it. Come hell or high water. So for Evan Pasoko, Zane the Bearded One, thank you again. This has been David Amboys. We'll catch you later. Jordan Erickson's your winner here at Martinsville. So long, everybody.
This is Hugs Belly Rubs.